Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not Jesus fulfilled prophecy, and we are starting right now with Samuel Nesan's opening statement. Samuel, the floor is all yours. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, James, for hosting this, and thank you very much, Matt, for agreeing to do this. In my very first debate that I did, this was in 2012, the argument from fulfilled prophecies was the one I used. And I'm excited to be able to just focus on this one in this debate with Matt. Again, to begin with, let me quote a passage in scripture as to why I believe this argument is important. My contention in this debate is that number one, Jesus did fulfill Old Testament prophecies. And I make a disclaimer before I start that by saying that Jesus did fulfill Old Testament prophecies, I do not mean that he has already fulfilled all prophecies. There are some aspects that were meant to be fulfilled in his first coming, and there are some aspects that are meant to be fulfilled in the future, and there are some other aspects that are being progressively fulfilled as the gospel spreads through all the world. So in this debate, my position would be that Jesus did fulfill part of the predictions made in the Old Testament about him. The key text for my presentation today comes from Luke chapter 24, verses 44 to 48. And I read from the ESV, "Then he," referring to Jesus, "said to them, 'These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms might be fulfilled.' Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures." Now, scriptures here means the Old Testament. Verse 46, "And he said to them, 'Thus it is written that the Christ should suffer and on the third day rise again from the dead, and that repentance for the forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things.'" So then Jesus saw himself as the fulfillment, not just of part of the Old Testament, passages here and there, that the Christian apologist has to somehow go hunting to find these obscure passages and to try and somehow squeeze them to make them fit into the narrative of Jesus. Not so. Jesus' self-understanding was that he was the fulfillment of all that was the Old Testament. So in other words, the Old Testament existed to point people to Jesus. And that's really the position that I'm taking coming into this debate. And so when you look through the Old Testament, my position is that when we see that Jesus is the central fulfillment of all that the Old Testament is talking about, the Old Testament written by at least no less than 30 authors over a period of more than 1,000 years, you suddenly begins to make sense in light of the person of Jesus Christ. Not one or two obscure passages, but the entirety of it. So with that big picture, what I'll do is in the rest of my opening statement, what I'll do is I'll run through the Old Testament to show why this big picture points to Jesus. We begin with, before I even get there, for the purposes of this debate, it's my understanding that Matt will grant that the Old Testament was written before the time of Jesus. And I know that Matt is not committed to whether Jesus existed or not. That's certainly not part of this debate. But for the sake of argument, it's my understanding that he will grant that these passages already existed prior to the time of Jesus. So Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, the very first verse of the Old Testament begins with the phrase, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." So God creates the heavens and the earth, and then he creates man. Genesis 1:26 talks about how God creates man and women in his image to rule over his creation. And keyword here, to be in a covenant relationship with him. The entirety of the Old Testament, and the word testament itself is a covenant, speaks of God having a covenant relationship with his people. In this case of Genesis, it's Adam and Eve. Now in Genesis 3, man and woman sin, and they sin against God, prompting the second covenant, or the first covenant, promising a savior. So this covenant comes in Genesis chapter 3:15, where God says, "I will put enmity between you," referring to the serpent, "and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring, and he," referring to the seed of the woman, shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. So right from the get-go, as soon as Adam and Eve sin, the promise is God is going to send the seed of the woman, a singular he, who is going to crush the head of the serpent, have ultimate victory over the head of the serpent by being bruised in the heel. Now, I will interpret that as bruised in the heel to mean suffering a slow and painful death. But that's, again, be something we can discuss later. But the important thing is that as soon as the sin takes place, God promises someone who will ultimately have victory over Satan. And Genesis 4, you see the idea of a sacrificial lamb. Genesis 4:4 talks about a sacrificial firstborn lamb being offered to gain favor with God. And so automatically you have the picture that God expects forgiveness through the blood of the lamb. This is a theme that will play all throughout the Old Testament. When we get to the book of Exodus, the number of things that God does to set the people of Israel free. And the last one that ultimately does it is the blood of the lamb on the Passover. But before that, Genesis goes, what happens in Genesis is it begins with this overarching context of God is going to send the seed. And it begins in Genesis chapter 12 with a person called Abraham. It narrows down. God promises Abraham that through his seed, all nations on the earth will be blessed. So the promise now is narrowed down, more specified to Abraham. And through Abraham's seed, this is going to happen. And we know that through Isaac, this comes about. And in Genesis chapter 22, we have a very interesting story. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Matt has spoken on this story before. It's a popular one. Genesis chapter 22 talks about God commanding Abraham to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. This is in Genesis 22, verse 2. And off the get-go, there seems to be a factual error. Isaac was not Abraham's only son. Isaac was not even the oldest son. But why does God refer to Isaac as the only son? And in that passage, God tells Isaac to go, Abraham, to go to the land that I will tell you, to the mount, to the regions of Moriah. And there Abraham goes up that hill to sacrifice his son, Isaac, with Isaac carrying the wood up that hill. Isaac is fastened to that wood on top and is about to be killed when God stops and provides an alternative, a ram, in the place of Isaac. And interestingly, in that passage, Abraham says this, on the mount of the Lord, it will be provided. Future tense, it will be provided. What will be provided? The context is the sacrifice of the only son. Interestingly enough, we know that Mount Moriah, or the regions of Moriah, was where Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem. And 2,000 years later, Jesus dies on Mount Moriah. Now, is that a conclusive proof that that's a prophecy about Jesus? No, but you have to see it in the entirety of the context. The narrative goes on with it getting clearer and clearer where exactly the sacrifice will be given. And then when you come through Exodus, you see that, for example, God forgives sins through the blood of the Lamb. God delivers through the blood of the Lamb. In fact, in Exodus chapter 6, verse 6, say therefore to the people of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burden of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. God promised redemption through an outstretched arm. And long story short, when you go through the entirety of the Psalms and the prophetic literature, you get the idea that God himself will be the sacrifice. In fact, in Isaiah 53, and I'll probably have only time to just get through with this, you notice the phrase comes in, Isaiah 53, who has believed, verse 1, who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Where did we hear the word arm of the Lord? Well, that was in Exodus chapter 6, verse 6, the means through which God redeems his people. And you go down and you find Isaiah 53 promising that this arm of the Lord is going to be despised in verse 3. He will bear our griefs and carry our sorrows. Verse 4, he would be, verse 5, pierced for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquity. And when you get to chapter 8, by oppression and judgment, he will be taken away. He will be cut off from the land of the living. And yet, verse 10 says, 10, 11, and 12 talks about his death, which will bring a blessing to the nations, going back to the promise of Abraham, that through his seed, all nations on the earth will be blessed. So again, I could go deeper into this, but my time is running out. I will hope that either through the cross-examinations and the rebuttal, to help us realize that all this picture of God, the context of all this is that when man sinned against God, God is beginning a plan to redeem man through him. This plan is ultimately fulfilled with Jesus. And by the time you get to the book of Revelation, which is a prediction of the future, you have basically God once again uniting man to him in this grand picture consummating with the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much, Samuel. We will kick it over to Matt for his opening statement as well. 10 minutes. The floor is all yours, Matt.
Cool story. And sorry for the late start. It was entirely my fault. There's also been some internet hiccups. But so if we were to ask, did Jesus X, for example, did Jesus rise from the dead? Did Jesus emerge from a virgin, preach the words attributed to him? Did Jesus have sex? Did he eat food? Did he curse a fig tree? Did he walk on water? Did he curse the blind? Did he poop? Did he fulfill prophecy? Those are different questions, and not all those questions are asking about something that can easily be verified. And while I'm not a mythicist, we can't even verify a single story about a single event from his life, including whether or not he actually existed. It's probably have had sex, although I'm sure that will offend someone. It won't offend them as much as the suggestion that he might have had gay sex, which, by the way, is a more reasonable inference from the text about the disciple whom Jesus loved than any proposed prophecy we're likely to hear tonight. But the other things are less mundane and require a bit more than, well, that's what the story says, or we can reasonably infer this about someone. Hopefully, we will have several specific prophecies on offer tonight, statements that clearly predict a future event, and then solid evidence that show that this future event was fulfilled, in fact, by Jesus and not merely stories. I'm doing my opening second, so we would have already heard this, except we didn't. The James Randi Educational Foundation for years had $1 million prize for anyone who could demonstrate any supernatural ability. Now, this question about whether Jesus fulfilled prophecy, I mean, the JREF tested people who claim to be able to predict the future or remote view. I myself, as a magician, can do things that make it appear like I've made a prediction. As a matter of fact, before the debate started, I gave Sam a choice from one of 8 symbols, which I had already predicted with everything in front of him directly. I don't know if he knows how I did it. It's not going to work well because of the green screen. But so the question is, do we have specifics? If the James Randi Educational Foundation's $1 million prize can test psychics like this, then, and they can set up protocols to test this, then clearly this issue about whether Jesus was divine, whether he fulfilled prophecy, has to be worth more than $1 million. So the standard of evidence for Jesus should at least rise to the level of being good enough to win the JREF prize. And it doesn't. You can't just walk in with a story of one person doing something that was predicted in a different story, because if that's the standard, then we can say Harry Potter fulfilled prophecy or that Neville fulfilled prophecy in fan fiction. For example, the trick that I did is not only, I think, more impressive than any prophecy purported in the Bible or any prophecy that we're likely to hear about there, but it is specific. It is not prone or subject to interpretation of verses or symbols. For prophecy to be considered prophetic and correct, it must be specific. It must be unambiguous, answerable by a single future fact without interpretation. It can't be something that's out in the open that people are working to fulfill, like building me a house or bringing the medium rare steak that I ordered. Waiters and cooks aren't fulfilling prophecy, and people actively working to make, let's say, a Jewish nation state aren't working to fulfill prophecy, because that's not what prophecy is. It's not, hey, go do this. So the question is, did Jesus fulfill prophecy? Well, I don't know how anybody can say yes if we can't even demonstrate any facts about and details about his life. It just becomes a story. And a story, by the way, that the authors, for example, the author of the book of Matthew, seem really desperate to have Jesus fulfill as many Old Testament prophecies as possible, to the point where, and I think it's Matthew 2:23 or so, he seems to just mention a prophecy that nobody can find in the Bible. Maybe it's a lost text. Maybe he got a tip from an insider. Maybe it's just a cool story he heard. But the Jews, generally speaking, do not think that Jesus fulfilled prophecy. It's their book. It's their prophecies. Why don't they think that Jesus is the Messiah? Well, because he didn't fit any of the characteristics, or he didn't actually fit all of the characteristics of the prophecies, even in the story. Now, I could go through the Matthew 2:23 thing. Is it from another source? Did he make it up? But the truth is, it doesn't matter. because we have two different genealogies. Well, why do we have two different genealogies? Oh, one's through the father and one's through the mother. That's a post hoc rationalization. It's not like anybody can prove that any of these genealogies are Jesus. It's not like anybody can prove that he was born of a virgin or anything else. But they have to do these genealogies in order to tie him to David, because the Messiah that is not a divine figure in Judaism. It's a king that is there to restore the temple, to guide people to obey the law, the 613 mitzvot. And that's essentially, those are things, and he shouldn't be killed in the process. Judaism doesn't have a concept of fulfilling the law. The law is unchanging, and God is unchanging in Judaism. There's no concept of being born sinful. There's no concept of being born in need of salvation. Jesus is viewed as an influential false prophet within Judaism because he supported alterations to God's unchanging law. The Messiah in Judaism is a warrior king, liberator that's there to guide the people to follow the law. This concept of a Messiah originated in Judaism. The Messiah isn't divine or God. He must do certain things and he must not do certain things. Now, it's too much to dig through all of what the Jews did and currently do believe about a Messiah, but the Jewish version of Jesus is viewed through the lens of Christianity itself. Otherwise, it would just be another false prophet. The Jews view these as based on mistranslations or misinterpretations. And Sam, when he's running through these, talks a lot. We have Genesis 1 and Genesis 3 and all these other things, but it's all subject to interpretation. Islam and Christianity are perversions of Jewish foundations. They are extensions. They are unauthorized sequels that don't actually pay close attention to the model. Instead, they changed the model, which is why there were some Jews that followed Jesus and there were some that didn't, because the ones that, the rabbis who understood this stuff were saying, hang on a second, you're not what we're expecting, which is one of the reasons why he was purportedly killed. When it comes to messiahs and whether or not somebody fulfilled prophecy, I'll stick with the people whose ancestors authored the prophecy, who have spent their entire life studying it. Now, I know there's another group of people who've spent their lives studying it too. So at a minimum, what we can say is there's a group of people who don't think Jesus fulfilled prophecy, and they were the people who are tied to the original prophecies. And there's a group of people who do think that Jesus fulfilled prophecies, and neither one of them can demonstrate the truth of this proposition sufficient to change the mind of the other. And so the one correct answer about whether or not Jesus fulfilled the prophecy or any prophecy is we don't know. Now, if Sam wants to claim that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, he needs to state a specific prophecy, not a conversation perhaps in Hosea, as is one of the foundations for the passage in Luke, where a couple of people are talking to each other about something specific to their life. And only in hindsight can somebody go back and look at it. It's like, oh, we'll stay with him for 2 days and then the third day we'll be fine. Oh my gosh, that's what happened to Jesus. It must have been a prophecy. Yes, the text of the Old Testament existed beforehand, but it wasn't viewed as a prophecy by the Jews regarding their Messiah, because their Messiah wasn't supposed to die. And it shouldn't be viewed as a prophecy by anybody else, because it's not until after these events are reported in the New Testament that somebody then goes back and says, oh, look, here's this passage, which kind of sounds like what happened. That must be prophecy. He then needs to, after showing a specific prophecy that's not prone to interpretation, show that this prophecy was necessarily fulfilled by a fact in Jesus' life. And I don't know how you can do that when we can't confirm any facts from Jesus' life, especially nothing extraordinary. I'm happy to say, yep, there was a guy there, but we don't know much about it. Even if he's able to do all of this, he still has all of his work in front of him, because the fact that somebody made a prediction and some event can be tied to show that it apparently has come true doesn't tell you how it came true. Was it luck? Was it a reasoned inference? Were there people working towards it? Did the prophet actually have foreknowledge? And if he had foreknowledge, how did he get this foreknowledge? Did the foreknowledge come from a god or a time machine? Was there trickery involved? This entire thing about prophecy is a cascaded bait and switch. People want you to make you think that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, because then your natural instinct will be to say, well, if you fulfilled prophecy, it must be God. But the fact that a prediction ultimately did or didn't come true doesn't tell you anything about the source of it or how or why. The topic of this debate isn't debated all that often, at least amongst theists and non-theists. It's debated quite often between different denominations that have different views, or between Jews and Christians. But it's not debated too much because it's useless. They can't prove what they claim they can prove. And even if they could prove it, it wouldn't prop up their beliefs. If the average mentalist can do much more accurate and impressive predictions, and we can, it's ridiculous to claim that one story is somehow fulfilled prophecy from another story. And while it may upset people to think that, hey, did Jesus poop? Did Jesus have sex? The thing is, imagine in about 200 years on an episode of Modern Day Debates where the subject of the debate is, did Jesus hook up with fishermen or just have one man that he loved? And the atheist could show up and say, oh, come on, it's just a story. I know there's language about lying on the Lord's bosom and the disciple whom Jesus loved and introducing that disciple as a son to his own mother. But all that stuff is just in the Gospel of John. You're not going to rest it all on one gospel and one story, right? This reminds me of the days when people kept pushing Matthew's prophecies, and we have no idea whether he's gay or bi or pan or monogamous, because you can't prove any of it. And that's why I don't see how anybody can show that Jesus fulfilled a prophecy.
Thank you very much. We will jump into the rebuttal. So these are 5 minutes each, and then we're going into the cross-examination. So Samuel, the floor is all yours. I've got the timer set for you. Thanks so much for being here.
Could you reset the time, James? I would mute it myself a little bit. Okay.
It's a little bit, if you're able to turn your volume up just a little bit. I haven't started the timer yet, but your volume's a little bit lower, Samuel.
Okay, let me just work on my audio.
Even if you just get closer to the mic.
All right, is it better now?
That's better. Good.
Great. Okay. All right, I'm starting. Yeah. Thank you, Matt, for that opening statement. So to get to some of the points that Matt actually said, he said that, because I only have 5 minutes, I'm going to be rushing through this. And hopefully we will get the cross-examination a chance to actually discuss some of this. But Matt's position is not that Jesus did not fulfill the prophecy, to be clear. And if I'm misrepresenting him, I hope he will correct me later. His position is that we can't know anything for certain about Jesus Christ. And so here's a point of disagreement, definitely. I mean, as someone who believes that we do have records of Jesus that are early, within a lifetime, within the first generation of Jesus, and external historical support, not to mention, I'm sure Matt knows all of this, Cornelius Tacitus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, and Maraba Serapion, the Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 43b, the whole list of them. There's a list of both biblical and extra-biblical sources. In fact, I think there's more evidence for the historicity of Jesus than, as it's commonly said, than any other figure in history that I'm aware of. And so if we can't be certain about that Jesus existed, we might as well dismiss the entirety of history to begin with. And I don't think that's very helpful. And so can we verify anything about Jesus Christ? Sure we can. Sure we can. It just depends on what is our criteria of verification. Well, I believe that the New Testament writings are reliable. That's clearly not the debate. So I'm not going to change the focus of the debate into the New Testament reliability. Rather, I want to address some of the other points that Matt has raised. Matt says that prophecy must be specific. I agree. I think that we can, while we may disagree how specific exactly the prophecies of the Old Testament are concerning Jesus, mind you, the entirety of the Old Testament pointing to one single person, going down from Abraham to Isaac to Judah, to the tribe of Jacob, to the tribe of Judah, to the seed of David. It gets more and more specific until it comes down to the person of Jesus. And that's why perhaps both Matthew and Luke are interested to begin with a genealogy to show that Jesus fits the criteria, because the Old Testament makes such specific prophecies as to when it must come. I also think that the Old Testament makes a prediction as to when the messenger of the covenant will come. In fact, in Malachi chapter 3, we see that the prophet Malachi prophesies that the Lord himself would come into his temple. The messenger of the covenant is going to come into his temple. And we know the temple was destroyed some 440 years after the writing of Malachi. So there was only a 440-year window for that to be fulfilled. But mind you, the temple of Herod was only began to be built later on. So that makes it an even more tinier window by which the Messiah had to come. So I think that the Old Testament is being specific, But again, we may dispute as to whether it is specific enough for our satisfaction. He says that the prophecies cannot be by interpretation. I would argue that every single thing we say, everything that Matt says, everything that I say is subject to both interpretation and misinterpretation. That's just a fact. If I write something, people can misinterpret me. To say that prophecies must not be subject to interpretation unless I'm misunderstanding Matt here. And if I do apologize, and I hope that he will clarify. Everything we say really is subject to interpretation. He says that people cannot be working to make it happen. Well, if the prophecy is come about by God and God is the one fulfilling the prophecy, then it definitely makes sense that God will make every attempt to show himself faithful to the prophecies he comes. But I do get Matt's sentiment in that, some people say that, well, they make this prediction and then they try hard to fit, to make that happen, to verify themselves. Bear in mind, this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a series of prophecies over a period of 1,000 years by more than 30 different authors, from the time of Moses all the way to the prophet Malachi in the Old Testament. So you're not talking about a one person saying something and then trying to work hard to fulfill it. I totally get Matt's sentiments, but if God is the one making that prediction, he would definitely do every attempt to make sure that he's shown faithful to his word. Now, a few other things I wanted to get to, that is that...
About 30 seconds left.
Sure thing. The Messiah being the king, yes, that is prophesied, but the Messiah is also a prophet, and the Messiah is also God. We find that in passages like Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, Isaiah 7, verse 13. Matt said the Old Testament does not have a concept of original sin or being born sinful. I'd beg to differ. Psalm 51, verse 5, David says, in sin did my mother conceive me. Matt says there's no need for salvation in the Old Testament. Well, David seems to differ. He says in that same chapter, restore to me the joy of your salvation, assuming it's something that can be lost. I'm out of time, but I look forward to the cross-examination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will kick it over to Matt for his 5-minute rebuttal as well. Floor is all yours.
So I didn't hear much in the way of a rebuttal to anything specific I made. As a matter of fact, I didn't hear anything that was really specific, which is kind of what I've been waiting for. Apart from, you seem to think that I said that there's no concept of sin in the Old Testament. What I said is that Judaism doesn't have a concept of necessary salvation. You interpret the Old Testament different than Jews do. When you talked about the fact that I mentioned that the Messianic prophecy was about being a king, you said, yes, king and also a prophet. But Jesus wasn't a king and also a prophet. At most, you could list him as a prophet. He wasn't a king. And so he does not meet the prophecy, even by your own statements. Let's see. You said that I said that we can't know anything for certain about Jesus' life. Well, I don't think we can know anything for certain about anything or anyone. So that wasn't my objection. My objection was to whether or not we can reasonably have confidence in Jesus performing miracles or being born of a virgin or any of the actions, or even that we have a good record of what he said. And I don't see that we have a reasonable expectation that the events purported in Jesus' life actually occurred, especially when you have authors like Matthew suggesting that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, including invented prophecies, or at least one that hasn't been identified. You listed off Tertullian and a bunch of others, but those aren't contemporaries. They are not eyewitnesses. They are people recording reports after the event. Now, it's true. I agree that the Old Testament was written prior to Jesus or the time of Jesus. And that's really cool because a prophecy clearly has to be in place before the thing that fulfills it. If you write the prophecy afterwards, well, that would be cheating. Now, on the subject of prophecies coming before, it only counts if somebody says this is a known prophecy before the event that comes in. You can't go and say, oh, here's an event and here's a passage back in the Old Testament that I can make fit this. And so now I'm going to call this a prophecy, which is why Jews have a different view of what counts as prophecy in the Old Testament with regard to Messiah than Christians do, because Jews have a forward-looking perspective on this. They have a model of what they have been taught to expect out of a Messiah throughout this, and it's consistent. And when those prophecies are met, they will know that they have a true Messiah. Christians, on the other hand, have done this exactly backwards, which is they took what was written about Jesus with no way to demonstrate that it's true, and then went back and looked at what's in the Old Testament to see if they could find things to make it fit. That is massaging a prophecy. with regard to, I forgot I was waiting for some specific prediction, some specific fact. Here is a fact that the Old Testament says is going to be about the Messiah. It's a fact that, and when I say, this was the issue, when I say it can't be subject to interpretation, of course, everything we say, it goes through a filter in our mind. But Sam, when I did the trick before the show, was there any interpretation about the symbol on this compared to the symbol on this thing? It's not like, well, if you turn it sideways and you look at it, it could have been 2 or 3 other symbols. There were 8 symbols on that sheet. I predicted exactly one. I could show it to 1,000 people who know nothing about the trick and say, point to the 2 that match, and 100% of them would get that exactly right. That is not true for anything you or any other Christian has ever or will ever show as prophecy, because you have the entire Jewish population that are not Christians saying, no, that's not prophecy.
Thank you very much, and want to remind you folks as we jump into the cross-examinations, if you have not yet, hit that subscribe button as we have many more juicy debates coming up. And with that, gentlemen, thanks so much. Samuel, the first cross-exam is you cross-examining Matt. For 10 minutes, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Matt, for that rebuttal. Now, with regards to, you said there seems to be a difference in the way that Christians understand the Old Testament versus how a Jew will understand the Old Testament. Could you elaborate, for example, in terms of methodology, where would that differ? And secondly, which Jews are you talking about? Modern day Jews or rabbinic Jews prior to, the Masoretic period?
I don't know that it makes any difference. There were Jews who had a view about their prophecies that led some portion of the Jews to not accept that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, and some did. A smaller portion did than didn't. And modern Jews who aren't Christians, don't hold that Jesus fulfilled the messianic prophecy, and they view him as a false prophet. I mean, you got to take that up with the Jews. I'm just reporting. If I'm completely wrong, and suddenly the scholarly experts within Judaism are now proclaiming Jesus Christ as Lord, that would be an amazing, you should have started with that in the debate, but you didn't, because it's not true.
Right. Yeah. So I'll just proceed with the question. So this is something that I would love to discuss. So if you bring this up in the cross-examination, when you cross-examine me, that'll be fun to discuss where Jews differ. But in terms of, let's just go back to the text that I brought up. Let's take a very common one, Isaiah 53, that I cited in my opening, which I think talks about the Messiah dying. And do you see that making a prediction of the Messiah dying, or as a Christian, am I misinterpreting that somehow?
What in there talks about the Messiah?
You can ask me that in my cross-examination, but my
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at this as just a discussion. So what's your specific question for me?
Okay. Yeah. In that case, if you're doing this in a discussion, I'm fine to change that. Yeah. No, I was just under the impression.
I don't care. I just want to make sure I'm doing whatever you want. So what's your specific question that you want to know about me from Isaiah 53?
Yeah. So in Isaiah 53, am I misinterpreting it? How am I misinterpreting it if I say that that's referring to the Messiah dying? Is there a reason why I may be misinterpreting it in your view?
I don't see anything in there in the original Hebrew that mentions a Messiah. This could be about any individual, any prophet for the Lord, anybody working for the Lord. And I don't see anything in the original Hebrew there that says anything about the Messiah.
All right, so let's go through this passage, Isaiah 53. We talk about God's way. I mean, we begin in verse 1, which talks about the arm of the Lord. So in my opening statement, I tied it to the arm of the Lord, for example, being mentioned in redemption in Exodus 6:6. Would that be fair to say that God says his means of redemption is his arm, and it here is talking about the way in which God redeems? I'm drawing the two connections in the Old Testament. Is that a fair interpretation in your view?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you. One more time. Don't waste any of your time, but go ahead.
Oh, no problem. In Exodus chapter 6, verse 6, God says he will redeem with his arm. And Isaiah 53 is talking about a suffering servant. I'm sure we agree that it's talking about someone who is suffering, that's going to provide blessing for the nations around Israel as well. You would agree to that, right?
No.
No? Okay. So who is the one suffering in your view?
I don't know. It's not specific enough. That's the problem. That's why people are able to interpret it in different ways. If you want to have a messianic prophecy, it needs to be clearly stated that this is a messianic prophecy before the event that it's supposed to fulfill. You can't go and do it afterwards, which is what you're doing.
Right. So just to understand your view, you're saying that we can't know for sure. It's too vague, even though there's been a trajectory from Genesis 3 that someone is going to basically die. I
don't agree with your assertion that there's been a trajectory since Genesis 3. I look at the story in Genesis 3 and where God says he's going to put enmity between the woman and, the serpent. You view that as setting up a messianic prophecy down the line. And I think that's a load of crap that is only done afterwards, because what happened is people wanted Jesus to be the Messiah so much that they went back through the Old Testament and found everything they could find to massage it to make it fit. Why isn't Genesis 3 just about Adam and Eve?
Again, I'm happy to answer that in my cross-examination. Yeah, so I just wanted to, then in your view, what does Genesis 3:15 mean? Yeah, granted, you said it's vague. If you are reading Genesis 3 as a Jew, what does that mean when it says that I'll create enmity between your offspring and the seed of the woman, and he will crush your head and you will bruise his heel? What would that mean in that context, given that they've just sinned?
I have already answered this. The story is about Adam and Eve and the common trope that women and snakes don't get along.
Okay, got it. All right.
Just like Lot's wife wasn't actually turned into a pillar of salt.
All right, sure. In Genesis 22, when Abraham's about to sacrifice his son Isaac, which we believe, sorry, stumbling over the words, to be the exact place where Jesus would eventually die, the death of Christ.
I don't.
So do you believe that Jesus died then? Do you believe that someone can have, let me rephrase that. Do you believe someone can have sufficient reason to believe that Jesus died? At least not to prove, but to have some level of
to whatever extent someone can reasonably believe that Jesus existed. Of course, they can believe he died, because that's what happens to people.
Right. Could we go further then? Do you think that there is some evidence, not conclusive in your view, some evidence to suggest that he died by crucifixion in Jerusalem?
The story is that he died by crucifixion, but I don't have any reason to believe that the stories about this individual are true.
Okay, so let me then turn the focus to the discussion on methodology. How would one, for example, if supposing the events and all this did take place, let's for the sake of argument grant that the events did take place, how can we, granted we don't have video cameras and
there's no way I'm granting that. There's no way I'm granting that. That's absolutely ridiculous. If you grant that everything I said, everything in my holy book is true, then my holy book wins. Well, of course, that's boneheaded. I'm not even convinced that the place of his death, which I would put probably as Golgotha, I don't even hold that that's identical to Mount Moriah in the first place. So I don't make that same connection in Isaiah, but also the Isaiah story is horribly flawed in the first place.
When you say the Isaiah story is flawed, sorry, go ahead.
There's no reason to test Isaiah other than to teach Isaiah something. And so if you're God and you want to test Isaiah to see if he knows and understands you, and you say, hey, go kill your son.
Isaiah, you're talking about Abraham, right?
Yes. Sorry, what did I say?
You said Isaiah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Abraham, sorry. Go ahead, the binding of Isaac. So when the Bible says, your son, your only son, the only son whom you love. It's interesting. There's a comma there because it might be the only son whom he loved. It might be the only son that was still at home. We don't know. And so you see reading a bunch into that only son thing, only because Jesus is referred. In the case, you wouldn't have looked at that story about Abraham and Isaac.
Pardon my interruption, Matt. It was a little bit hard. I don't know if we got that question. The connection ebbed and flowed for a second. If you want to just back up one sentence.
So you made a big deal about how the passage with Abraham and Isaac says your only son whom you love. The only reason you care about that is because Jesus was referred to as God's only son. If Jesus hadn't been referred to that way in the New Testament, this passage in the Old Testament would never have been viewed as anything remotely connected to Jesus. There were plenty of other sacrifices. And meanwhile, if you're God and you're opposed to child killing, when you go to Abraham and you say, hey, I want you to kill your child, if Abraham knows and understands you correctly, the one and only correct answer is, depart from me, foul spirit, for my God would never ask for me to slaughter my kid. What this thing shows is that God would and did expect a child sacrifice, and that Abraham expected God to ask him for, or was willing to do a child sacrifice on God's behalf. And all of it is just absolutely abhorrent. But you can say, we are pattern-seeking machines. And so once people see Jesus and the story, they go back through the Old Testament and say, oh, look, it's similar to that, it's similar to that, it's similar to that, it's similar to that. Yes, because these are all passionate stories about human beings and our character and heroic things. And Joseph Campbell goes through this in the Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to yield the rest of my time, and yeah, we can go to Matt.
You got it. We'll switch it over for Matt to ask questions to Samuel. And so, setting the timer. And by the way, I want to give you guys positive feedback from the Twitch live stream. Corvy7us says, gotta say, I'm loving the extremely respectful back and forth so far. So thanks for that feedback.
I really wish Sam would just start calling me names so we could get it over with.
That's right. The floor is all yours, Matt.
Okay, so I'm wondering what you think is the most specific prophecy that was fulfilled by Jesus.
Yeah, I don't think, so just for context, I think that we can't take any of those prophecies out of their context. I think the Old Testament as a whole, make a unified projection concerning Jesus right from Genesis all the way to Malachi. And so to rip one prophecy, if you take, for example, what we just did, Isaiah 53 out of its context, Isaiah 53 has no standing. It's just talking about a guy who is going to die and who's going to bring about blessing for the nations. But if you see it in the context of Genesis, where the sin, the fall, and the promise of covenant redemption and that coming, it makes sense. And that's why I think that I will not be able to pinpoint exactly one. I think they come in the entirety, the unit of the Old Testament itself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's the problem. And I don't know how we move on from here, because without a specific prediction, all you have is fuzzy, warm feelings of the context. And if you look at it this with this and that, and then you add this, and you look at this over here, and then this and this, oh my gosh, it's just so overwhelming. There's just so many prophecies. And yet, could anybody name one specific prophecy that was necessarily answered by Jesus?
Well, I think maybe I was not clear in my first answer, Matt. But what I was trying to say was that no, I think there are many prophecies that are specific. But what I'm saying is when you take
name one. If you think there are many prophecies that are specific, name one.
Isaiah 53, Genesis 22. I've named them in my opening statement.
You haven't named them. What is the prophecy?
Yeah, I was getting to that, Matt. So what I was saying is that all of these prophecies come in the context of the rest of Scripture. And when you take them, it's like basically taking a word. What is the strongest word in this sentence? It doesn't work. The sentence comes as a unit, right?
I'm sorry, but your analogy is flawed. A prediction is a single prophetic statement, period. You don't have to take it down to the point of words. I did a magic trick before here that made a prediction that was specific, that wasn't prone to any interpretation. Why can I do better tricks than your God?
Well, in essentially, God is not doing magic tricks. He's making a covenant promise.
You don't know that?
I do know that. I think, Matt, I do know that.
You don't know whether or not I did a magic trick or whether or not I actually made a prediction with supernatural powers.
Actually, I did, because you told me you were going to do a magic trick. So
yes,
I'm taking you for your word.
Was I telling you the truth? How did I do it then? How did I know what you were going to do?
I'm going to take you at your word as I take the Scripture at its word, unless there's any
There's your mistake. That's why you've been fooled twice today.
Well, I'll pick
I don't have any other questions. If we can't get to one specific prophecy, this entire thing is a waste of time. Because if it's just your case now becomes you believe the Bible and I don't. Well,
absolutely.
Exactly. Congratulations. And under that, Harry Potter fulfilled prophecy. And, I don't know what to do if I can't get a single prophecy that we can assess. Because if somebody were up for the James Randi Education Foundation's $1 million prize, this would not even get them in the door. And yet you're
Right.
talking about prophecies from God, supposedly. This would not even pass a preliminary test. You have not even established a criteria by which we could establish that a prophecy existed and had been fulfilled.
Yeah, I
Usually
really
the cross-exam, to be fair, let's see, if we are able to kind of keep it into the questions, that's probably more ideal.
that
Okay,
would
I
be
have no
helpful.
more
Yeah.
questions because the one question I
Okay,
had, the
we'll
one that
go
would
to
have
the next
solved
section.
everything,
Thank you.
refused to be answered.
Matt has given up the rest of his 6 minutes. So Samuel, you can ask Matt for 10 minutes. The floor is all yours.
No, I think that in a sense, I think it's kind of the same with me as well, because every question that I'm asking Matt, he's saying that I don't have an interpretation for this. Correct me, Matt, if I'm misinterpreting you, but you said that, it doesn't matter what he thinks, it's just too vague, either that or that was kind of what you said, right? So in a sense, I don't think the cross-examination would the second cross-examination would go anywhere as well. I think we have a difference in methodology. I think that we can take the historicity of Jesus to be certain. I think we can take the death of Jesus to be certain, in light of the evidence we have.
Well, hold on one sec.
that
Same thing for you,
Yeah.
Samuel. If you guys are
Yeah.
gonna, if you're not gonna ask questions, we could just go into
No.
open conversation. I'm totally okay with that if both of you guys are. So it doesn't
I'm
have to
fine.
be in the form of a question, but otherwise, I'm kind of expecting you, Sam, to ask questions to Matt. So,
No, I mean, I'm just saying that I don't think that that's going to go anywhere unless we want to have we can have
Okay.
an open conversation if Matt wants to. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with having conversation, and I know there's people who are going to have questions, everything. It's just incredibly frustrating to agree to, did Jesus fulfill prophecy, when, and I don't mean this as a snark or insult, but literally.
Sorry, Matt, you just
Harry
froze
Potter
again.
fulfilled
You just froze again.
I know I can't do anything about it.
Right. Could you repeat again? Could you repeat what you just said again? Yeah.
It's to say, here's a character in a book. I can't prove any specific thing from his life, but the first part of these other prophecies or these other books that are included in here, they make claims that I view as prophetic of this. But the people who wrote them, we don't know that they viewed those passages as prophetic. The people who are the descendants of those people who have been waiting for those prophecies to be fulfilled don't view those prophecies as prophecies, don't view your interpretation as accurate. And so we're at a point where you say Jesus in the story fulfilled the prophecy. Jews say he didn't. I say, I don't see how you can say he did anything. Like, did Jesus walk on water? Did Jesus poop? I think if Jesus existed, he probably pooped, but I don't think he walked on water unless it was frozen.
Right. I think the difference between what I'm saying and what you're saying, Matt, is that I think that the Old Testament needs to be, and by the way, James, just to be clear, this is kind of an open discussion until we want to go for Q&A, but I think that's until.
Yeah, we're open for open discussion for maybe like 25 more minutes.
That's fine. Yeah. Anyway, what I was saying, Matt, is that we have a difference of, I believe that whenever words are written, they're meant to be written, they're meant to be interpreted. I'm just having a difference of interpretation than a Jew reading that passage. And I'm saying that if interpreted X way, my way, then we can see that it fulfills the life of Jesus.
That's a tautology.
Let me finish.
That's a tautology.
Matt, let me finish. So what I was saying is that if it's interpreted in this way, it can do that. And I'm thinking this is, and I'm not just saying that, I'm saying that this is the way it is meant to be interpreted by the original authors.
How do you prove that?
Oh yeah, by context. I was just going to finish one point, Matt, and then I'll answer the question on how we can prove that. The Jews that disagree with me also have their own interpretation. They have a difference of interpretation. I mean, we can discuss that, but and that's one of the reasons in the cross-examination, I was kind of trying to get what was your interpretation of that, so that at least if you're disagreeing with me on interpretation, we can have a discussion as to what the text means. But if we can't engage and discuss what does that passage mean, we can't even begin to ask the question of whether Jesus fulfilled that. But did you want me to answer your question on, I think you did say something that I said I'll answer. Kind of forgot it just now.
How do you prove the original intent? Because the Jews disagree with you on the original intent.
Clearly, I mean, I think people may disagree with all sorts of things, but I think the way we prove original intent is by looking at, first of all, the historical context, the cultural context, and the literary context. And that's what I've been trying to do, to look at the context in which it was written, both cultural, historical, and literary. I think that way, that's how we interpret, I think, every piece of literature.
Okay, if you want to, this isn't about interpreting literature. So let's stop that pretense. If you want to just say the Bible's literature, then I'm fine with that. The Bible's literature. And now there is no prophecy because literature doesn't have prophecy.
No, I think, Matt, that I mean, anything that is written, I'm considering it to be literature, regardless of whether it's inspired by the Holy Spirit.
Okay, that's not what literature means. If you don't know what literature means, all right, I don't know what to do, because now, so you've argued tautologies. You've said basically that if we interpret the Bible the way you interpret the Bible, you're right. Well, duh, big freaking deal. If we interpret the Bible the way the Jews interpret it, you're wrong. If we interpret it the way I do it, you're both wrong.
Right. And so at the end of the day, I believe that the original authors had an original intent, and we can look at that intent and see whether, for example, my interpretation is accurate or the Jews' interpretation is accurate. And I should add that it's my understanding that the Jewish interpretation has not been the same. That's why I asked you whether you're holding to a rabbinic view of interpretation, which precedes the later time, when after Jesus, do you have a different school of thought right after that, which is kind of responding to the claims that Jesus was the Messiah. So if you have, for example, it's my understanding that the Talmudic writings, or rather the rabbinic writings preceding Jesus, believe that those passages were messianic. That's my understanding. And I don't pretend to be able to pull the source out now and give it to you.
My thing is, so if we're going to have a discussion about whether or not Jesus fulfilled prophecy, we should have a prophecy and then a demonstration that Jesus actually fulfilled it. And when I say that, I don't just mean here's a passage in the Old Testament that I view as prophetic, and here's a passage in the New Testament that I view as fulfilling it. We need to actually demonstrate that this actually happened, and that it fulfills that prophecy. And you can't seem to do either part of it.
No, I'll disagree with the way you phrase that. So what I'll say is that what I try to do is to get to the Old Testament to say, first of all, there is a prediction being made. And I'm trying to establish that it's coming in the context of human sin. It is talking about the forgiveness of sins. It's talking about how that will come, the means to which it will come. And then I want to get to the second part, which is showing that Jesus did do that. And I was actually planning to touch on things that I thought most of us would agree on. Jesus died and all that. But the thing is that when we can't agree as to whether the Old Testament is at all making that prediction, Matt, we can't even begin to discuss whether or not Jesus fulfilled that.
Agreed, which was my entire opening, which I wrote before this, because I knew you couldn't. Otherwise, there wouldn't still be Jews.
I mean, do you believe that, for example, we can disagree on that you could write something, Matt, and that you could have later, maybe 50 years after you and I are gone, people could disagree as to what you meant when you wrote that. I think people can, right? But that doesn't mean that you did not have an original intention in writing that. Would you at least agree
if they disagree, that doesn't mean that they have any way of knowing what my original intention was. You're convinced you know what the original intention was.
Wait a minute, just to be clear, you don't believe that, if let's say there is hypothetically a disagreement about a piece of writing that you wrote, that if there is a disagreement, no one can know for sure what you meant. Is that really your position? Or that someone
nobody can, I don't think anybody can know anything for sure. So yes, of course it's my position that nobody can know for sure what I meant. But it may be, but maybe someone can have a reasonable understanding of what I meant. But they can demonstrate that and make the case. Just like when I did this trick, if I do this trick for 1,000 people over 1,000 years, there will be zero worry about point to the two symbols that match. That will happen every time. Why can I do better fucking things than your God can?
Yeah, I think equating symbols in a visual setting, which clearly you and I are visual, doing things with regards to the way in which
I didn't limit it to symbol. I just happened to do.
I'm sorry, Matt, you froze again.
Prophecy.
Yeah, I think you just froze again. It's okay. But anyway,
I'm probably under a DNS attack or something because, well, actually my YouTube hasn't stopped at all. And I've got gigabit internet here. So who knows what's going on.
Right.
I apologize for something I can't fix and don't know about.
No problem. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done. Unless Matt wants to ask me anything, we can go ahead.
I really don't. This whole thing boils down to, can anyone on the planet present a specific prediction that was clearly made and known to be a prediction about a Messiah before the events that was clearly answered by Jesus? And the answer seems to be no.
Again,
I know you think you've done that, but you haven't.
I'm just wondering what do you do with all the passages that I did in the opening statement? What do you say to that? It's not specific enough. Is that what you're going to say to that?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. We disagree then on that.
You went there. So none of them. So a prediction shouldn't be And I mean, these, by the way, these things are sometimes written in the present tense, and you have to. There's two guys talking in Hosea about a Lord that they're going to go visit to get healed, and you want to interpret that as the foundation for, what was it? Is it Luke 21:46? So something written in the present tense in Hosea, you want to interpret as if it's a prophecy being fulfilled, and that's just nonsense.
I'm not. Which passage in Hosea are you referring to?
Well, wasn't it the Luke 21:46 that you were referencing?
No. Oh, you mean the first passage I referenced?
Or is it Luke 20? Hang on.
The first passage I referenced was Luke 44, was 44 to 48. It's Luke 24, was 44 to 48. Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Luke 24.
44 to 48.
Yeah. And so let me go to 46. Luke 24:46. Sorry, it was 24, not 21. He told them, this is what is written. The Messiah will suffer and rise from the dead on the third day. And repentance for the forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. Where is that written? That passage there? Where is it written in the Old Testament? Because generally people point to Hosea.
I've never had anyone point to Hosea for that. So
Hosea chapter 6 for the first three verses. Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will restore us that we may live in his presence. Let us acknowledge the Lord and let us press on to acknowledge him. That is the stereotypical passage that Christian apologists have used to point to either for Luke 24:46 or maybe it's the Matthew 2:23 one.
Yeah, so I've never in my life used that passage to prove that passage or to use that as a prophecy. You know, so I'm when I talk about the death of Christ, I'm looking through, for example, Genesis 3:15. I'm looking at the passages which basically the entirety of the Old Testament, Matt, is talking about the death of the blood of the Lamb as a means of forgiveness of sins.
Only in your eyes, the entirety of the Old Testament to Jews is their history, and it's a comedy of errors about God trying to make the world right, and it goes wrong, and he tries to make the world right, and it goes wrong, and everybody disobeys, and he stops trying to save the whole world, and then he picks out one tribe that becomes his chosen tribe, but they screw it up too, over and over and over again, and then everything just kind of halts, and boom, here's Jesus to save everybody, except that he's only come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That you can go back and look at that as a Christian and say, wow, the Old Testament, all of this points to Jesus. And you know what? It's utterly unconvincing to anybody who doesn't already believe it, because that's not what the Jews look at it.
Right. So I think when you say, for example, that it's unconvincing to people who already believe it, I think that's clearly wrong, and it's not true, because there have been so many Jews who once that have been converted by basically just looking through those passages and coming to that. So again,
there's a lot of people who aren't all that skeptical.
Maybe you're speaking hypothetically, right? No one will be convinced, but I mean, I know people that have been convinced.
No one should be convinced. Anybody. So I can do a magic trick right now that is better than anything specific prophecy you've gotten. I should get more praise and credit for being godlike than anything written in your holy book.
But wait a minute. When you say better, what are you basing that off? Like how what's your standard?
I can make a specific prediction and have it come through without interpretation. I did it before we started.
Yes. And it proves that you made a prediction and came to pass. But again, I don't get the...
It's more than you've demonstrated with regard to Jesus and prophecy tonight by a long shot.
Okay. So again, I think that as far as I'm concerned, I'm done, because I think that the passages that I shared rather, it's intended to communicate that God was trying to do something.
Was Jesus gay?
No, definitely not.
How do you know that? It talks about a disciple that Jesus loved who laid his bosom on the Lord, who Jesus introduced to his mother as a son. How do you know Jesus wasn't gay?
Well, that's because that goes back to exactly what I was telling you about in terms of looking at historical cultural context. The brotherly love, philia, was something that was just common between men of that time. I've been to India, and although I'm not from India, in India, when you go, people hold each other's hands, guys hold each other's hands and they walk, and there's no one even thinks of it being remotely, homosexual in nature or anything like that. It's just a cultural thing. In fact, you have David and Jonathan that were basically pretty close, and kind of, in the same thing. They're not gay as well, so this is just misinterpreting it in light of our culture. And I think that's why, for example, we need to go back to the historical cultural context precisely because of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the text more strongly and clearly identifies Jesus as gay than any prophecy thing that you've come close to. That's more specific than anything you offered.
Yeah, I find that really strange because that's clearly nowhere intended in the text. I think Jesus was a Jew, and Jews believed that it was sexual immorality in light of Leviticus. To suggest that was what was happening, I think, would be to rip.
But Jesus changed other things, and this is the reason why they crucified him. He changed God's unchangeable law. That's why they killed him. How do you know one of those wasn't just being gay?
Okay, pick one. You said that Jesus changed the law. Could you pick one?
Oh, basically, the vast majority of the 613 mitzvot that were practiced or that were required elements of the law that Jesus now came to fulfill, and Jesus fulfills and eliminates the sacrificial law. So there's your one.
Could you point me to a passage in the New Testament that says that? And we can look at that together. Yeah.
Not off the top of my head, no, because I didn't come here to debate that particular topic. But you don't think I'm right?
No.
You don't think that Jesus said specifically that he came to fulfill the law, and that the sacrificial laws have gone away since then?
So Jesus never said that the sacrificial laws have gone away.
Did they go away? And
yes, they did.
And wasn't it Jesus that said you don't need to do this anymore?
So that's why I'm asking. If you could show me a place, then I can look at that. In my understanding, I don't see anywhere where Jesus.
So when was your last sacrifice? When was your last sacrifice?
Oh, I don't do it because of Paul's writings, Matt, and it's got nothing to do with. So the thing is that I think what we're saying here is the argument that you're trying to make, that I understand, is that because Jesus changed the law, Jesus was going against it. I don't think Jesus changed the law. On the contrary, Matthew chapter 5, Jesus actually says, I did not come. Do not think that I've come to change the law. Let me get the passage for you.
Do not think that I've come to change the law, but to fulfill it, which is interpreted as not a jot or tittle of the law will change. But none of this is relevant to prophecy, so we can move on.
Think I came to abolish the law. I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. And so I think that Jesus would say the exact opposite, Matt. I think
he would, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
I thought my whole point was that Jesus came to fulfill the law, and the sacrificial laws stopped applying then.
So when you say that Jesus came to fulfill the law, I'm responding to your original point, Matt, when you say that, that Jesus came to fulfill the law. He did not come to break the law. When you brought up the practice of homosexuality, you're assuming that Jesus broke the law. I'm saying Jesus did not come to break the law, but to fulfill the law. And by fulfilling the law, as far as Christians are concerned, Christ has fulfilled the law on our behalf, as far as the sacrificial laws.
What did Jews think about it?
Depending on which Jews, Matt, you're talking about. Are you talking about Messianic Jews? Are you talking about rabbinic Jews, liberal Jews? Which one are you talking about?
Let's go with Orthodox Jews.
Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with Orthodox Judaism today.
Okay. Well, anyway, none of this is relevant to prophecy, so we can move on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can move to the Q&A, James. Yeah.
We will jump into the Q&A. So thanks, everybody. Want to say we appreciate all of your questions, and just because we are trying to make sure that the Q&A doesn't take up a disproportionate amount of our time, we're asking super chats, $10 or more will be read, and we ask for serious questions only, as we really do want the show to be the highest quality as possible for listeners. Bill Levine, thanks for your question, says, please demonstrate the prophecy fulfilled by Jesus that you think has the most evidence to support it, and please give the evidence. And modern day debate is awesome. Thank you for your kind words, Bill. And I think that one's for you, Sam.
Yeah, again, to go back to what I said in my opening statement, I gave a list. If you want me to pick one, Isaiah 53, I think, for example, talks about the suffering servant whose death brings about blessings for the nations. I think that's one of the clearest prophecies. I think that anyone who looks at the crucifixion of Jesus, which is, again, not a disputed fact among historians. It's some dispute, but it's not a major dispute among historians. I think the vast majority of critical New Testament critics would accept that. When you look at that passage that talks about the Messiah wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities, the punishment, that for our sins, the punishment that he suffers brings us peace, and by his wounds we are healed. That to me is one of those prophecies that shows that a Messiah must come and a Messiah must die. And I know of no other claimants who say to be a Messiah who came to die for the sins of the world, apart from Jesus. So that would be one. And I would think that the way, when you talk about, for example, being clear in prophecy, the way you gain clarity is by looking at it in the context of all of what the scripture says. When you rip it out of its context, it really has no value at all, because you're missing the big picture of where this context or where this passage is coming from. And I think that was the point I was trying to get. And that's why I think using bring your strongest prophecy, I think it's not the best way to look at it.
Next up, question from James McGran. For Samuel said, surely if God is inspiring a book and made future predictions, they'd be incredible and specific. Give us the explanation of gravity, creation, evolution, or dark matter as examples, they're saying.
I didn't quite get the question.
So they're saying they think that they're saying, quote, surely if God is inspiring a book and made future predictions, they would be incredible and specific predictions, such as giving us the explanation of gravity or creation or evolution or dark matter.
Again, I think that I would fully agree that there is incredible and specific predictions, but it becomes incredible and specific when read in its context, not taken in isolation. And to basically bring it to evolution, dark matter, and all that is basically trying to make the shot and then draw your target around it. We basically take what God has revealed covenantally and interpret basically the life of Jesus in light of that, which is why I really began with the Old Testament and tried to establish that. To me, it's incredible. To me, it's specific. But when you're looking at it without the context, that's one of the reasons why in the cross-examination, I wanted to spend time wondering what was Matt's interpretation of that, so that at least we could have a discussion on interpretation. I think when you look at that and you be able to look through the authorial intent, it becomes incredible. It becomes specific, taken the entire Old Testament.
And if anybody came forward with a prediction that vague, claiming that that had been fulfilled right now, they would be laughed out of the room. It would not qualify for the JRF $1 million prize. It would not qualify in a courtroom. It wouldn't qualify anywhere. It only qualifies to the people who believe that they are looking at the inspired word of God and desperate to find a way to make it fit, which is why when we ask for specifics, oh, no, it's all about context. It's all about context. Well, any God that is smarter than me could make a very specific prophecy answerable by a single set of circumstances subject to no interpretation. And that has not happened.
Oh, can I respond to that briefly, or do you want to go to the next question?
If you want to, very briefly.
Oh, yeah. I would say that God can, Matt. I don't deny that God can. I just think that God did what he did. And we're just discussing what God did, whether he did.
No, we're discussing what you think God did. I don't think there's a God who's ever done anything. And you're making excuses for the God that hasn't done anything.
Right. And on my view, I think you're imposing your plausibility framework on what, for example, is or.
Whoa. What's a plausibility framework, and how the hell do you think I have a plausibility framework?
I think that, for example, that when you look at certain things and say it has to meet my criteria, that is a plausibility framework. I think
this is not my criteria alone. Okay, I'm talking about the criteria of skepticism in science, of logical investigation of evidence, of making sure that something is specific in its prediction so that it cannot be subject to interpretation, so that you are less likely to be wrong.
Okay, how specific? Sorry, Matt, do you want to move on? James, did you want to move on? Because, clearly we disagree on criteria here. And yeah.
We'll jump into the next one. Sydney V, thanks for your question, says if wishes were, let's see. Okay, looking for more serious questions. But J Rivera 345 says, Matt, just wanted to say thank you for the impact you've had on my life. Hell and fear of the rapture gave me traumatizing nightmares, even though I felt I was a good Christian. They're all gone now that I'm atheist. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Next up, B16 Street Burner says, Samuel, for a collection of books like the Bible to say something that has been proven to be false, like, quote, rabbits chew the cud in Leviticus 11, how can it be rational to believe it's true and reliable?
Again, I need to look at the context of Leviticus 11. It's not something that I've looked at. And when I've looked at, I'll respond to that. Yeah.
Gotcha. And this one coming in from Becker P. Thanks for your question. Said, Sam, if biblical prophecy can be interpreted, then how is the Bible any different from Rasputin and a newspaper's daily horoscope? They all involve vague statements that can be quote unquote fulfilled in many ways.
Right. So there are two differences that I'll point to. First of all, just to be clear, I'm going to repeat myself again. Every piece of writing is subject to interpretation. You can't basically come and say there is any piece of writing that basically would mean the same thing given if 1,000 people read it. Everyone who reads anything, whether you read it on Facebook or whether you read it on Twitter, you are making an interpretive jump.
Are all texts equally ambiguous?
No.
Then clearly, some are more prone to confusion and context and interpretation than others. For example, a mathematical formula with a treatise below it that describes it in great detail would be much clearer to every user than Isaiah 53, right?
No, and that's what I mean, yeah, in terms of if you're using a mathematical, no, hang on, Matt, hang on.
You just said no.
No, hang on a minute. Yeah, so what I'll say is that, for example, if you're talking about a mathematical formula, sure, I'll grant that. But what I'm saying is I probably shouldn't have started out by saying no. Okay, so I'll take that
back. But I'll listen.
I'll take that back. Okay, so what I would say is that when you look through the context of that, to me, it is clear. And I think to the audience in which they received, the original audience that received it, it's clear. But bear in mind, when we say all of this, we're looking through a piece of literature that was written thousands of years ago. It meant something to the original audience. You and I cannot expect.
Whose fault is that? It's not my fault. It's God's fault.
Please let me finish, Matt. Please let me finish that. So when it's written to an audience more than 1,000 years, 2,000 years ago, before you make an interpretive jump, you're going to have to understand what it meant to the original audience and basically make the jump as to what it means for us today. You can't basically assume it is written for 21st century Christians. And yes, God did that. And I don't think it is God's fault. He has every right to choose.
God did it, and it's not his fault.
No, it's not
God
his fault.
selectively reveals stuff at points in time that will be confusing to people in the future, but those people in the future are going to be judged based on their ability to understand it. And it's not God's fault. Whose fault is it?
It's not God's fault at all.
Whose fault is it?
No, it's not God's fault at all.
Whose fault is it?
I think it's human beings' fault for being sinful. I think our sinful nature blinds us.
I think you have sacrificed your humanity and your intellect on a fire to a God, because if none of us had any say in when it was revealed and how it was revealed, and God is the only one who had any say in when it was revealed and how it was revealed, cannot be anybody's fault other than God's. And for you to blame it on human beings just shows the depravity of how far backward you are willing to bend over to make excuses for that book.
Again, I think I would disagree with Matt on basically when he says that, that it's wrong to blame humanity. I think humanity is sinful. I think humanity is in their own sinfulness, twist things. And I think that's the entire argument of Romans 1, that although the ways of God are clear, we in our sinfulness twisted. Now, clearly, Matt and I approach this from a different worldview.
If the ways of God were clear, we wouldn't be here having this conversation, would we?
No, Matt. I think to be fair, you've said that even if God wrote, even if God did an extraordinary miracle, I forgot which one it is in one of your previous debates. You said even if there was an extraordinary miracle, you would not believe it. That's what you said.
That's not what I said. What I said is I would not necessarily believe it was God. I would believe whatever it was I witnessed and whatever the evidence was for it. However, in your model where a God chooses to reveal things, how can it possibly be my fault if he hasn't revealed himself to me?
So wait a minute. You just said that no matter how, for example, you wouldn't believe it was from God, even though it was extraordinary. Why then would you blame God for not?
Because the fact that something is extraordinary doesn't mean it's from God. You have to demonstrate an actual connection between the thing and God. How do I tell the difference between something a God did and something an advanced technology did? Until that time is actually demonstrated, here's a God and this God did this, it's not justified to believe that because this happened, you're correct in inferring that it was a God. Yeah, meanwhile, back to the question that I asked, which was, how could it be my fault if God chooses whether or not he's going to reveal something to me?
Yeah, because regardless of the amount of evidence you have, Matt, you would not believe by your own confession.
No, sir. You do not get to accuse me of that. That is a bald fucking lie. When presented with evidence, I'm not done talking.
Yeah.
When presented with sufficient evidence, I'm willing to believe anything. You do not get to say that I will refuse to believe anything when it's presented by evidence. In response to my question, if God chooses whether or not he reveals something to me, how can that be my fault? Revealing is not the same as having evidence demonstrating it. How can it be my fault?
I'm done with this discussion, James. Yeah.
I'm done with all of this. Let's go to the next question.
Yeah.
That's
All
the
right.
most dishonest bullshit.
What we'll do is, I think what we'll
Matt's
do.
just closed-minded.
All
He
right,
won't
Matt,
believe
so
anything. That's
hold on a
absolutely
second. What I'm
disgusting.
going to do is, Matt, I'm trying to get this back on track. Okay. Yep. So, I don't know if I didn't even mute you on.
I
He
muted
muted
myself
himself.
so that
He
I could
muted
keep
himself.
ranting at Sam's absolutely vile
so-
character attack on me.
What we'll do is we're going to try to get through the rest of these questions. And so if you're willing to bear with Sam, I'd be grateful. I know that
I'm willing to, yeah.
it's rough and
But may-
tumble, but
Yeah, maybe if the question is addressed to me, James, I would prefer that I get to answer that question. If Matt wants to respond, that's fine. But I'll prefer if I get a chance to answer the question instead of it going
Gotcha.
into another round of cross-examination. Yeah.
So we'll jump into this next one. This one coming in from, and it is true that due to the amount of questions that we have, we want to ask that if you guys are okay with one person responding to each question that's addressed to them, and then we just go to the next question.
Well, I don't know. My character's been attacked, and there's shitheads in your chat right now that are calling me all kinds of names because Sam accused me of refusing to believe things even when sufficient evidence is warranted, which is the opposite of skepticism. That is the opposite of what I've advocated for.
So,
and he
but
did it while
so are you
refusing to answer
okay
the
with
question that I asked.
Okay. So, I mean, it is, I do want to ask that folks in the chat,
This will
For
be my
both-
last modern day debate.
for both of our guests, we do want to ask that you would please respect the guests. And also, moderators do want to ask that you would please help out in terms of holding people accountable, regardless of what side they're on, in terms of trying to monitor people that are saying things that they ought not. And so this next question comes up from Don Fulman. Says, let's see, my question for Matt, doesn't the Septuagint written 200 years before Christ prove prophecies were predicted before Christ's birth?
Well, does it prove that prophecies were predicted? I've not objected to the notion that prophecies predate Christ. That's never been the objection. The objection is which prophecies there that predated were known to be prophecies and were actually fulfilled by Jesus, and we haven't been able to get a specific answer.
Gotcha. And thanks for your question. This one coming in from Shigawire says, love your work, Matt. Keep it up. And thanks to Samuel Nesan for having the debate. As always, James is a pillar of good vibes. Thanks for your kind words, Shigawire. Appreciate your positivity. From John B. Xanos Carthage says, let's see, appreciate that. Looking for more of the serious questions. This one coming in says, B16 Street Burner says, Samuel, for a collection of books like the Bible to say something that has been proven to be false, like, quote, oh, we got that one. Sorry about that. This one coming in from Amy Newman says, midnight after show tonight at modern day or YouTube. Well, the link we have put in the description box of this event itself. And so that after show with Amy is linked below, and our guests are linked below as well, folks. Amy Newman says, question for Samuel, why do the majority of Jews believe that Jesus did not fulfill prophecy?
I think part of the reason why many of the Jews believe that Jesus did not fulfill it, I think, is because of a misunderstanding of the Old Testament, first and foremost. And number two, a lot of what became Jewish apologetic or rhetoric or polemic against Christianity came after the Messianic period, which is following the fall of Jerusalem, in AD 70. The Jewish understanding basically began to move away from interpreting the Old Testament as their predecessors did, and began to move towards basically polemics against Christianity. You see glimpses of that in the Babylonian Talmud as well, which was dated to 150 AD. So I think that Jews today are, in a way, relying on their literature that was written in response to Christianity instead of engaging the text itself. I think that when you have an honest Jew who wants to interpret a text, and that doesn't mean that if they're honest, they would agree with me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we can actually get back to what the text mean and actually have a discussion as to what these passages mean. And I think that actually is one of the reasons why Jews don't believe. And I think for most of the part, I think many of the Jews today are relying on their traditions rather than going back to the Old Testament. That's the other main reason. If the Jews were to go back to their scripture and read it for itself instead of relying on their traditions, I think it would be a lot easier for them to see Christ as the fulfillment of all that was prophesied.
Gotcha. This one coming in from Farron Salas says, Harold Camping was another failed prophet, quote unquote, but at least his failed prediction was specific, the end of the world. But yet, we are still all here. So Samuel, give you a chance if you want. I think it's kind of pressing.
I'm not going to respond to that.
Gotcha. This one coming in from James Allstair. Hannah says, Matt, what about the prophetic Psalm 22, Isaiah 7:14, as well as several passages in the Babylonian Talmud view Isaiah 53 as prophetic, as well as Yefeth ben Ali, Shimon ben Yohai.
You don't have to keep trying. It doesn't matter.
Maimonides. I know I'm saying that wrong.
You don't have to keep trying. It doesn't matter. So the notion that some things were prophetic before Jesus is something that I haven't rejected at all. The issue is whether or not Jesus fulfilled prophecy. What is it? What can we show about Jesus that actually happened that fulfills prophecy? And is it something that is, by the way, extraordinary? Like, hey, here's something specific and this is going to happen. And wow, that's incredibly unlikely. Or is it something that would have been fulfilled of it? Like if I say, the United States will have a woman president, is that a prophecy? Because it seems like it's something that's going to be inevitable. And if you say that eventually someone will suffer and their suffering will bring about a better world for people, isn't that going to be true over and over and over again? So it's not like there's a Jesus person was the only person who ever suffered and had people benefit from it. It's not even the only person for that, that's happened within the doctrine. So yeah, I mean, you can point, what we need is something that's specific, that is answerable by a single specific occurrence. Or you can have a whole bunch of things that are pretty close to specific answerable by this, but you don't have either one of those.
Next up, Will Stewart says, Matt, if we can be sure of nothing, then it is futile to assume anything. Therefore, isn't your assumption that Jesus didn't fulfill prophecy equally as invalid as the belief that he does?
So can you read the first sentence of that again and then stop when I stop?
Sure. They said, Matt, if we can be sure of nothing, then it is futile to assume anything.
I agree. Stop. I'm not assuming. That's my point. I'm not assuming. So first of all, the fact that we don't have absolute certainty doesn't mean that we don't have reasonable confidence. This notion that we can't be absolutely certain is a purely philosophical one that means you can't have a measurement that is more accurate than the tool that you're measuring with. And if we cannot prove that reason is absolute, which we can't, it's just, we have no reason to think it's not absolute, but we can't demonstrate that it's absolute, then we can only be as confident as reason permits. And if reason doesn't permit certainty, then what we have is maximal confidence. And so what we should always be striving for, and this is the principle of skepticism, is to proportion your level of confidence in a position with the evidence for it. And so if there's kind of good evidence, maybe you're 60% confident. If there's really good evidence, maybe you're 98% confident. If you don't see any way it could possibly be wrong, maybe you're 99.999999999% confident. This is only a strict philosophical notion that we cannot be absolutely certain. That doesn't mean that we can't have justified confidence levels and be more confident about something than something else. I can be, and Sam doesn't disagree with this. This was the whole thing of the difference between two predictions, the difference between two texts, a math text and Isaiah 53. Your confidence level in what they mean is proportional to the clarity and the evidence for them. And so we should be less confident in something like Isaiah 53 than we are in 2 + 2 = 4.
This question coming in from EndoXD. Thanks for your question. Said, Matt, what are your thoughts on, I read this, on Hosea 6:2, and why does that not count as prophecy for Jesus rising the third day as said in Luke? Love your work, Matt. By the way, never stop.
Thanks. Oh, you mean the passage that I was referring to as a reference for Luke 24:46 that Sam said he'd never heard and wouldn't use? I already covered it, but yeah, I'd recommend that Sam and everybody else take a look at that, because for Luke 24:46, Hosea 6 verses 1 through 3 or whatever is what is quite often pointed to as the prophetic Old Testament thing for that. I don't see how it actually applies other than, hey, we'll be fine in 3 days is kind of what the story is.
Gotcha. And good day to you, sir, says Samuel, Jesus, and is not, it's hard to make that out. Jeremy Pace says, didn't Jesus eliminate the dietary law by saying it's not what goes into a man that makes him unclean?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Jesus basically said that it's not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him unclean, but what comes out of him that makes him unclean. And the text says, in doing so, he declared all food to be clean. Yes, Jesus did eliminate the dietary laws by saying that. And I was looking for that passage to be brought up, actually. So yes, Jesus did eliminate the dietary laws. And now, I think if you want to go even further into the theology of why the dietary laws were there, it's my understanding that the dietary laws were there to distinguish that which was clean and unclean, and this forms part of the ritual purification of in the Old Testament, which is that, which is basically that, that the things that are unclean can contaminate us, and that in light of Christ coming, all these things exist to point people to Him, and that when He purifies all these things, He makes pure. That just ties forward to the vision where Peter has in Acts chapter 9. Or was it 10, where he's seen this vision that basically he's seen the food that the Jew would consider unclean. He's told to go ahead and eat. And basically, Peter says, I've never touched anything unclean. And the voice says back to him, don't call unclean what God has made clean. It has now been made clean. I think that's the same argument Paul uses in Colossians chapter 2, verse 15 and 16. Where Paul says that do not let anyone pass judgment on you with regards to food or drink. These were a foreshadow, the reality of which is Christ. So I think in that sense, Christ fulfills the dietary laws.
Gotcha. And thanks very much. Also, want to remind you, chat, yes, do want to keep it respectful. I would encourage you, folks, if you want to throw your poop at someone, throw it at me. For real, we will not ban you or delete you if you trash me. We have many video comments to prove that. And so do want to let you know, we do want to respect the speakers. They're linked in the description, folks. And so, like I said, if you have insults, things to say, throw them at me. And with that, Evat, thanks for your question, says, so according to the cultural context, Paul would prefer men, romantically speaking, because he was part of the Roman military, and culturally they practiced, they practice men having relations with men. So Samuel, is it likely that Paul preferred the company of men?
No, I think when you look through the entirety of Paul's writings, Romans 1, 1 Corinthians, he clearly condemns homosexuality there, using the Greek word arsenekoitai. I think that Paul clearly was not, and I don't know where you get the idea, where this person got the idea that Paul was in the Roman military, and that just because of that Paul would have done that. Paul was a Roman citizen. I don't think there's any text there that I'm aware of that would indicate Paul was part of the Roman military.
Gotcha. And thank you very much for your question. This one coming in from Gab Marquez says, looking for more questions related to the debate. No offense, but Mark Reed, let's see. And thanks for your question.
By the way, somebody suggested I owe James an apology. I'd like to know what for, but to whatever extent I owe James an apology, it's unreservedly offered. I haven't been mad at James once through the debate, so I don't know what I did, but okay.
I know that things get heated here, folks, but I do want to say, I really appreciate our guests. And I one thing I know that it is in the chat, I have to be honest, I'm just going to be real with you folks. It bothers me when either side is attacked, you guys. It's just, life is too short. If anything comes out of this channel, like one of my biggest values, my hopes is that folks in the chat is that we'd resist, like, oh, they take that position. They're a Christian, they're an atheist, they're a whatever, so I don't like them. And it's like, please don't. I feel like
now it's like threats.
I feel like
somebody saying people are without jobs, don't lose this source of income because of a chat you might regret. Gee, it's so weird the things somebody else said they were 74% confident that I don't have any character. It's strange what people in chat decide to say. But anyway.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to look at it but I believe you. I do want to address that, folks, is that you know, we're only on this planet for a short time. I think we'd all at least agree on the idea of like there's something valuable to being able to disagree with someone and treat them well. And so we ask you in the chat to do that. And it's something that we have asked the moderators to give warnings. We used to be pretty lackadaisical. It was just like hate speech, you're banned. That was always a rule. And now it's getting to the point where it's like it's so tribalistic with a debate channel that it's like, gosh, it's like we folks, don't you get it that our guests, why would they want to come here if they get treated like crap? You're kind of undermining the goal of the channel, which if you're at the channel, like you must in some part like the goal of the channel, and yet so it's like we do want to ask folks, true tolerance is disagreeing with someone and still respecting them, right? So we do want to ask you for that, folks. And we're going to jump to this next question. We don't have that many left. We do want to keep our promise on reading those that we have promised. And so appreciate this one coming in from Will Stewart. Says, Matt, the first half of my earlier question that you agreed with was a statement of agreement. And they said, the question was, is therefore your assumption that Jesus didn't fulfill prophecy equally as invalid as the assumption that he did?
There's something about the phrasing there that made it hard for me to follow that. Can we do that one more time?
Yeah, no, you're not the only one. It's a mouthful. So they said,
because it's referring to a previous question, and I'm not sure what the previous question was.
I think they're saying that you guys actually, so he sent a question in earlier, and he's saying that you guys are actually on the same page for the first part of, like, you could say kind of the introduction of the question. And he said, so here he's saying the question was, is therefore your assumption that Jesus didn't fulfill prophecy? Yeah, there's no way you're going to understand.
Okay, so this is easy. I am not assuming that Jesus didn't fulfill prophecy. I am not accepting the claim that he did fulfill prophecy, and we would need to establish a clear prophecy and that something specific about Jesus fulfilled it. I'm not assuming anything, and I am only rejecting the claim that Jesus did fulfill prophecy because I'm having good standards of evidence. If anybody came to me ever in my life and said, hey, here's a book that makes us a claim about something's going to happen in the future, and here's another book that shows that that event happened in the future. Now, if I granted all of it, I would still be in a position of saying, wow, that's interesting. How did this specific claim from the past wind up coming true? Did that person have a time machine? Did they have access to a God? Did they get lucky? Did they have people working towards this? Did they make a prediction that was likely to come true? Like, hey, we're going to have a woman president or whatever. And I would judge them all on the same criteria for the same type of claim. Here's a prophecy claim. Just like when the JREF tests people who claim that they can predict the future. You have to have a specific statement in place beforehand and something not subject to much interpretation, I guess, since Samuel wants to point out we interpret everything, not subject to much interpretation that clearly demonstrates the truth of it. It's the same across the board, and yet we don't get it with Jesus. We don't get it with other religions. We don't get it with the air quotes psychics on the psychic hotline, which is why nobody's ever claimed the $1 million prize.
Gosh, and thank you very much for this question from Good Day to You, sir. It says, Samuel, why didn't Jesus fulfill the prophecy in Micah 5:15 and lay waste to the land of Assyria? Why wasn't he called Emmanuel even once in the New Testament?
I think, two questions I think that are really, really good. If you remember in my opening statement, I said that not every one of those prophecies were fulfilled. I believe that when Jesus comes back the second time, he'll be coming back in judgment. And the first time he came as a ransom for sin. And when you get to, and that, I think basically in short, the Micah prophecy will be fulfilled at his judgment. So there are passages that, for example, when Jesus read the citation from Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, anointed me to preach the good news, do good works. And he comes to the end where he says, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. The next line says, and the day of vengeance of our God. Jesus doesn't go there. He stops there, because there's a second coming where he's going to bring about the day of the vengeance of our God. And so we as Christians, we identify there are two different comings. In the second coming, will when the judgment will be held. Now, I think with regards to the other question, why was Jesus not called Emmanuel? I think in Matthew chapter 1, when you look at the entirety of the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew's goal is to kind of show Jesus as being Emmanuel. So the term Emmanuel is not really his proper name, but rather is a title he carries. So in a sense, Matthew says that he will be called Jesus, and the Hebrew word for Yeshua means that, Yahweh redeems, or God's redemption, God's deliverance. It basically means that God will redeem or save. And the angel says in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21, if I'm not mistaken, to Joseph, call his name Jesus, for he will save, implying that Jesus is the God who saves. Now, Matthew gives his own commentary right under that, saying this was to fulfill what the prophet Isaiah spoke. His name will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And throughout the entirety of the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew tries to show why Jesus is God with us. And in fact, the final verse of the Gospel of Matthew, this is in Matthew chapter 28, verses 20, ends with the phrase, I am with you always, even till the end of the age, fulfilling the title of Jesus being Emmanuel, God with us, even until the end of the age. So yeah, it's a title.
So I can put like a couple seconds on the end of this. What you just heard was a question, why wasn't Jesus called Emmanuel? And it was answered, well, Matthew called him that, even though nobody else did, and claimed that it was prophecy fulfilled. That's what you heard. Or the author of Matthew.
We're going to jump to the next question. If you want to hear a response from our guests, you can, in the description box, you can read or hear more in terms of what you'd want to, if you want to hear their further response. But this next one, coming in from Fadar Kuhn 24, says, a prediction that would save people's lives would be germ theory. Why would an aspect of the biblical God not make such a proclamation 2,000 years ago and bring more people to follow Christ?
Yeah, because the goal of the scripture is the salvation of humanity. It's concerned with the soul of humanity and not with dealing with germs. Jesus will one day bring an end to all of this himself without needing to give us hints on how to do that. That's just Christian theology. I think the biggest problem, again, and I think that Matt understood this as an attack on his character. It's not. In no way, shape, or form did I mean that as an attack on his character. I believe all of humanity is sinful. That's just what Scripture says. If I'm a Christian, I'm obligated to believe that. So I believe that all of humanity is corrupt. That includes me. I am corrupt and sinful. And
your attack on my character had nothing to do with the claim of corruption. It was accusing me of refusing to believe something, even if God gave me direct evidence. And that is an outright lie.
I will finish this and I'll respond to that. What I meant to say is that I kind of lost my train of thought. Do you remember where I was going with this, James?
I don't know, but I was in complete agreement with you about the nature of this question and the purpose of Christianity. There's no reason for God to tell us about germs, because God, this life is like dirty rags. This is a place to wipe your feet before the real life begins. God doesn't give a crap about what happens to humans in the one and only life we are sure we're going to get.
Yeah, so thanks, Matt, for that. And in response to your question, I think that what I was trying to say is that it's the natural tendency of human beings to deny God, even though God has made himself clear. I think actually that was not from me. That was just me quoting Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 23. For although they knew God, and I can read that passage if you want, but that's although they knew God and God had made himself clear to them, man chose to not give God the due credit, even though they knew that. So that was me just citing that from Romans chapter 1. And that's just my theology, Matt. It was not meant to be a personal attack. It was saying that basically if basically without the work of the Holy Spirit, anyone will not, even though the evidence is right before them, they will not believe.
You are misremembering the discussion. The point had nothing to do with Romans 1. Mm-hmm. You challenged my position as skepticism and misrepresented it as cynicism, and I clarified that.
No, if I remember correctly, Matt, I pointed out that that you were imposing your plausibility framework. That's where it kind of began, right? And I said that, we all have a plausibility framework. You're imposing that on this. So to you, this will not come across as, something that is specific enough. It does not meet your criteria is what I was trying to say. And then I went on to point out that if I heard you correctly in a previous debate, you said that if a sign, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was in a debate with Mike Licona, where, if a sign was there, you wouldn't believe it. And then you corrected me.
I wish you'd just stop, because you don't remember and you're getting it all wrong again. You have completely misrepresented my position. I'm literally sitting right fucking here telling you I'm willing to accept anything based on sufficient evidence. When the issue with the resurrection was, if somebody is dead and then they are alive again, and I don't know how it happened, I'm willing to believe that they were dead and that they are now alive again, but I'm not going to immediately go giving credit to a God or the person standing next to me who's trying to claim credit or anything else. There needs to be a demonstrated causal connection between the source and the effect. And until that happens, it is a mistake for anyone to believe it. That's skepticism. And you earlier misrepresented it as, I would deny and not believe the evidence even coming from God. Go back and rewind at what you actually said.
If that's what, my memory on that is a little bit hazy. And if that's the case, I misrepresented you. I'm sorry for misrepresenting you. Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
I didn't hate you. Yeah. I was just like, I can't believe I'm being misrepresented when I'm literally here to correct it. But it's all good.
Thanks for correcting it, Matt. Yeah, go ahead, James. Yeah.
We'll go to this next question from, appreciate it, Charles Insolo says, let's see.
All right. JJNN in chat just called me a Nazi. I mean, come on. It's like, that's not, it's funny that now they're just trying to poke.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, this is where.
Why are you angry, Matt? Because my character was attacked. I've been very clear. I'm going to answer your question, Antax.
Do want to let you know,
to be
folks.
Very clear.
So yeah, you guys, why, like, for those of you who are purposely trying to stir the pot, why would guests come back in debate? Why would they feel welcome?
They don't want me to, and they're going to get their wish. If
you call them things like Nazi, you guys, if you want to call me whatever you want, I'm dead serious. Call me whatever you want. I don't care, but not for the guests. Don't do it. We're going to start banning a lot of people if they're, and I for sure just saw somebody call Matt a Nazi with no reason. There's no reason.
They don't want me here, I'll stop. I will ignore them for the rest of tonight. Matter of fact, I'll just turn off chat entirely.
Well, but there is something to it that we have a culture. Well, forgive me. Hold on one sec. I do want to acknowledge and say thank you to the huge number of people that are not trying to stir the pot. I want to acknowledge them. There are a lot of people out there, and so I don't want to sound unfair. But there are also people that clearly you're out there trying to stir the pot, and I'm telling you, get ready to get blocked, because it's just like, how are we? It's not a good culture if people trash our guests. So we'll jump to the next question. But yeah, I definitely am just like, yeah, that is true, what Matt had claimed in terms of someone calling him a Nazi. And so Don Fullman says, Shazam, he did great tonight. You've got a fan out there. And then let's see. Taliesin Oberlander, just because I appreciate your positivity, says Matt is a handsome boy. Because it's the we haven't had a ton of positivity tonight, so I do want to at least read that. But folks, yeah, we want to say we appreciate you being here no matter what walk of life you were from. Whether you be Christian, atheist, you name it. But we do really, despite the fact that it's a debate channel, it's rough and tumble. Sometimes it's, heated and controversial and things like that. But folks, my hope is that people like those of you, I think small percentage, who are hateful and trying to stir the pot and call people Nazi, my hope is that you would come to this point of, among other things, one, recognizing you disagree with somebody completely and just being like, it's water under the bridge. I'm not going to take it personally. And so instead of throwing insults at them like that. So Mike Q922 says, Matt, we appreciate you. What are your thoughts on the disciples and Paul's testimony on the resurrection and why reject their claim they saw him?
So good question. And by the way, apart from addressing the issue of having character attack, I don't have any problem with Sam. Sam and I can go out and have a conversation, a meal, whatever else, maybe sort through this stuff a different way another time. When it comes to the reports of the apostles, we don't have originals. We have our stories and stories of copies of translations of oral traditions. And while I think that there may be some truth to the story, I don't know how to distinguish what's true from what's not. And it would be nice if we had some way to thoroughly and properly investigate this that didn't rely on speculative historical methods. A time machine would be great, or it would be really good if the God in question would just provide this clear, unambiguous evidence to everyone, so that you didn't have 1,000 denominations of Christianity, so that Christians didn't have to be at war between Protestants and Catholics, so they didn't have to be at odds with the Jews, so they didn't have to be at odds with Islam. It would be really nice if, rather than relying on texts which we know can and have been altered, do differ from the originals, if this is the foundation upon which an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God has decided to judge humanity, then he is foolish. He does not seem to understand the basics of epistemology and prefers that people believe things that are gullible on a foundation that will lead them astray, and does not seem to want to clear it up. And so I'm believing the scriptures. When it says, let God be true and every man a liar, I'm not going to believe ancient stories told by men about God. God can tell me himself.
Next up, thanks for your question. This one for you, Samuel. This one is Charles in Solo brings up an ethical question. It says, drowning babies is immoral. God drowned babies, and thus God is immoral. For Sam, what's your counter? Please answer in a syllogistic form.
Yeah, again, I've did an entire debate with T-Jump in Macon in person in Atlanta just about a month ago on this one topic where T-Jump kept raising this objection. You're referring to the flood where God drowned humanity. God basically was an act of judgment against sinful humanity. That's the position. I could not be a Christian if I did not hold to that position. Basically it was an act of judgment. And yes, God can judge anyone who basically violates his laws because he is God. That's just it.
So might makes right.
Yeah, I think that God is basically, righteous and he has the right to do whatever he wants,
including killing children.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike Q922 says, let's see. Second question says, Sam, your thoughts on the rapture, second coming, and 1,000-year reign of Christ. There's different views when the events will happen. Thanks and God bless.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, I have no idea. I'm happy to say I don't know on this one. I've studied the text. I'm currently doing a Bible study on the book of Revelation. I don't understand the book of Revelation at all. So I'm not going to pretend like I figured it out. I was a historical premillennialist, without getting too much into explaining what that is. But currently, I'm just open to basically either amillennialism, where you don't believe in an actual 1,000-year period, or even considering post-millennialism. I'm just not sure.
Gotcha, and thank you very much for your question. Appreciate your support from Juddy Donk, who says, ban these fools, makes the environment extremely unwelcome. Love MDD, hate to see it with these people basically disgracing the channel. And I'd agree, folks. I hope that you just project all of your anger, all of your malice, all of your rude comments toward me, and moderators, don't erase those. That's okay. But not toward the guests, folks. Ralph Ellis, let's see. Okay. This isn't per se relevant to the question of the debate, but we are looking for more relevant questions. I don't know if this is really helping in terms of resolving the tribalism. So Another one has come in from Pepe740 says, let's see. Love you, James. I'm a big fan of Matt. And Sam, is it all right if I buy you as a slave under the rules? Okay. Not per se under this topic, but basically we're going to wrap up with that. So we do want to say, folks, we do appreciate, well, Sam, forgive me. If you want a chance to respond to that, I can give you that chance. I didn't mean to cut you off, Sam.
No, I didn't. And if I was a slave, I think the scripture would command me to submit to my master. So, and yeah, that's just it. Because for the Christian, this life is not all there is. We are told to be, the Christian is told to basically recognize that all things are from God. But that's where the hope of the resurrection really comes in, when Jesus comes back to fulfill the rest of the messianic prophecies, to enact justice in the world, and to basically become king and to rule literally on earth forever and ever. That's the hope of every Christian, and that's the hope of everyone who places their faith in the Messiah, Christ Jesus. I want to thank Matt for this discussion. I do apologize for mischaracterizing him earlier. I hold no ill feeling against him, and it pains my heart. And it pains my heart to see that, when people attack him on the chat, calling him a Nazi and all that. I hope to God that's not a Christian. Thank you, James, as well, for moderating this debate.
And I also, not only do I appreciate Sam's honesty through that last answer, because those type of questions are ones where a number of apologists that I have sat down with will not be that honest. They will not say that, yes, I would have to submit to my master because, everything happens according to God's plan and everything else. And what the book actually says. My view is that the book should say that if you are a slave, you should try to escape and take as many other slaves with you, and stand up in opposition to a vile culture that has owning you as property. But then I'm only more moral than God. So what do you expect? Gotcha. All right. Now, I see people would have laughed at that, except for you guys. You two didn't laugh at it. All right. Anyway,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the.
No, it's fine. You're trying to read a bunch of stuff. I was joking about being more moral than God because I'm willing to tell slaves to escape rather than to tell them to obey their masters, even the cruel ones. But, sometimes jokes don't play.
Gotcha. And NOXD, thanks for your question, said, Sam, belief isn't a choice. Why do you say one can choose to or not believe? And why would God punish us for something that is not our choice?
So just to be clear, belief is not a choice. I think I think that part of the reason I think that my views that Matt just pointed out may be different. It's because I'm a Calvinist. I think that faith is it's a gift of God. It's a work of God. One cannot, have faith in God unless God first begins to work in the heart of a person, turning the heart of a sinner to love a God who basically seems, fierce and powerful and demanding our submission in every sense of that. I think it's only through the work of the Holy Spirit we can love such a God and come to recognize him as Lord. I think that why does God punish us? Just to be clear, I don't know if that's the way the question was phrased, but God doesn't punish anyone for not believing in him. He punishes us because we are all sinful. Let's be clear. I deserve to go to hell for my sins. I'm a sinner in every sense of that word. The only reason that I have the hope of assurance of the resurrection is because of Jesus took my hell for me on that cross. And that's what I believe as a Christian.
Gotcha. This question in from Mark Reed says, James is a mess of beta soy boy. Love you, James. Thank you, Mark Reed. Appreciate that. And Vinicius Ferreira, thanks for your super smile. And then let's see. Lyingforjesus.org says, Sam, what would qualify as a false or unfulfilled prophecy?
When someone makes a predictions that actually clearly is proven not to come true. A good example of that would be when the false prophets predicted that Israel will not go into captivity. Clearly that was false. Israel did go into captivity. And that was an example of a false prophecy.
Gotcha.
By the way, I want this. I need this. And I'm sure that this time Matt will be 100% with me. Claiming that Trump would win the election when Trump did not win the election. That's a false prophecy. Yeah,
and I did that in 2016 when I said Trump wouldn't win, and he did. So I was a false prophet in 2016. And the whole world paid the price for it.
Gotcha. And next up, I think that, let's see. Actually, I remember you, Paul, you'd asked a question. So let's see. Oh, no, not quite. But want to say thanks everybody for being with us tonight. No matter whether or not you're a Christian, atheist, agnostic, Muslim, you name it, folks, we do hope you feel welcome, and we appreciate you being with us. We are going to make changes, which I will address in the post-credit scene in terms of, yeah, definitely. Like I said, if you want to trash me, have at it. We won't delete it, and moderators don't delete it. But like I said, we do not want you to trash guests, and that is hurting the channel. So we'll talk about that during the post-credits scene. Want to remind you that our guests are linked in the description. And also, folks, we are thrilled that you're here. If you enjoyed this debate, want to let you know on screen you are seeing right now, we are on virtually every popular podcast app, so check us out there, as we are really excited to see a lot of people have been downloading those, so super encouraged by that. And if you're listening via podcast, want to let you know you can find our guest links in the podcast description box as well now, and also want to let you know, hey, if you rate us, if you're listening to the podcast, that helps us a lot. We do appreciate that. And so one last thanks to our guests. It's been... We love you guys. I know it's rough and tumble, Matt and Sam, and we appreciate you guys. We hope that everybody out there can, and like I said, I think most people actually are tolerant. It is a small percentage of people, so I don't want to, for everybody out there, a lot of you are awesome. I don't want you to perceive it as me throwing kind of calling you out, when in actuality it's a small percent. But long story short, thank you, Matt and Sam, for being with us.
Same for me. And by the way, in chat right now, in addition to Sam and I talking about how badly we both need to pee because we drink too much, we were talking about getting together to discuss these things elsewhere. Don't assume that just because something got heated, that all of a sudden, oh my God, it's like the person in chat that was like, oh, Matt's a Nazi. I see this over and over again on Twitter and everything else. Everybody who disagrees with me is a Nazi and you're the worst. And I don't think in those terms, and Sam doesn't either, which is why we can have kind of a knockdown, drag out exchange and still have something productive. I think there was a lot of productive stuff here tonight. And anyway, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much. And yeah, encourage you folks, having bitterness or unforgiveness, for those of you people out there trying to stir the pot, want to let you know, you're only hurting yourself. It's not something that you're gonna like. It's gonna like blossom into something beautiful. It's going to be something that it's like you're going to be miserable while holding out of those grudges. And so I'm telling you, folks. But anyway, we will be back in a moment with post-credit scene on upcoming debates, as we're excited for those. And so I want to say thanks, everybody. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. We'll be back in just a moment. right, folks, do want to address a few things housekeeping wise. In particular, so sorry, I think I missed a question. Oh man, Becker TP, I'm so sorry I did miss your question. Shoot me an email at moderndaydebate@gmail.com, and I'm happy to give you that $10 super chat back because we didn't get to read it during the Q&A. I'm really sorry about that. They asked, Matt, have you read Tom Hardy's poem, The Impercipient? It's about the idea that lack of belief is not a voluntary choice. So I know that you wanted to actually have that asked during the Q&A, so I am sorry about that. And yeah, do want to, like I said, for real though, feel free, please do email me. And if we're going to guarantee that we'll read a super chat that's $10 or more, then we've actually got to do it. And I just missed that one. I didn't see it. So folks, want to say for the positive people out there, which is the majority of you, I think, like, no joke, probably 90% of the people that watch this channel, like, they're happy and they're, they're pleasant and they are not trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Slander or do any sort of libel to trash people. And so I do want to acknowledge them and say thank you. And it is true, though, that, folks, we are going to have new rules. That this is something that Matt has brought it up, but it's not the only speaker that I'm sure has noticed that some people out there are trying to trash the guests. Now, here's where it gets tricky. There are a couple of things here in which it's going to be a challenge, but we do have to change, because it's like, this isn't going to be a professional, like, kind of growing kind of channel the way that we're hoping. If people are just calling guests Nazis, like, you guys, or I should say the small percentage out there of you who are trying to do that. Dave Langer says, so auto ban for anyone trashing guests now too? That's where it's sticky. That's where it's tricky, because we get into a lot of sticky situations, such as, if someone says, so for example, I saw somebody say that Samuel looked constipated tonight. Like, are we gonna ban him for that? I'd be like, if like, that seems like, so, the tricky thing is, if we don't ban it, we might have people say, oh, hey, James, looks like you guys are not neutral. You're not playing it, fairly. You instead will ban, like, you'll ban that. But then if something else is said that's like worse, let's see, so it is a tricky line to walk. And so Don Larson Jr. says, love you, James. James is like the brother I never had. Appreciate it, Don Larson Jr. Seriously, your positivity means a lot, especially on a week like this. It's been a hard week, and this debate was challenging in terms of it being controversial and people calling guests Nazis and all that. But this week has been a really hard week. And so I want to tell you guys, we don't want you to have like like some sort of grudge or anything like that. And Matt, it sounds like, is not coming back, and I have no ill will for Matt. We aren't entitled to host anybody, right? We aren't. And so for me, it's that, I have no hard feelings at any of the guests who say, nope, not coming on a modern day debate. It's like, that's their call, and we'll never have a grudge or anything like that. And so I do think it needs to change, though, regardless of whether or not Matt actually comes back. It is true that it's like, I've never, and I'm amazed, because I've never seen anybody. Tonight was just, I think I've seen trolls before, and it's a trick where we always wanted people to have freedom of expression to, like, even if they say, who knows what they're going to say, but as long as it's not hate speech, that's always been against the rules. And so, it's a challenge where it's like, we don't want people to feel like they're walking on eggshells, but we also really don't. And yeah, Andrew Handelsman, you're right. Says, James, people that hurt the guests hurt the channel. I was under the impression hate speech only, or I'd be doing a lot more timeouts. Yes, Andrew, I think it's probably, you probably realize it's pretty clear. I already see that. Namely, like, is that we have to have change in terms of like, I've got to tell you folks, and now you know why. Because some of you, I feel like a lot of you, like, because that's the thing is, if I delete stuff and it's like, because you're attacking a guest and you're like, wait, come on, James. And it's like, hey, you saw it. Like, a lot of guests won't come back if they're being treated like crap. And that makes sense, right? Like, why would you go somewhere where you're treated like crap? So Topbot2 says, this super chat is just for you and the moderators, James. Thanks for all the hard work you all do. Let's see. Thank you for your support. Appreciate that. And also, let's see, just reading in, I do want to say hello. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with us. There's a lot going on. One in particular, I'm excited that the podcast has been booming. If you guys have not checked this Modern Day Debate on podcast out yet, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm just pumped that people have been able to use it. Because when I first started uploading, I was thinking, it was like back in like April, maybe, I think May, June. I was afraid that nobody would listen. And so I'm super encouraged that lots of people have been downloading the Modern Day Debate podcast. So I'd encourage you, pull out your cell phone, look up your favorite podcast app, and find Modern Day Debate on that favorite podcast app. We're on virtually every single podcast, and I'm excited that that's one thing that is positive for Modern Day Debate, is that that's been growing. And I am excited, though, that you could tell that Matt and Samuel, and this is something I'd encourage you guys, is you'll notice that like at the end of the conversation, they're like, I don't hold a grudge against you. It got heated, but they were like, yeah, we're not going to, I'm not going to hate you or whatever. And so the Shire Crier says, let's see, lay it down, James. Don't let them trash you either. Hey, I mean, that's the trick. I don't care if people trash me. I really don't. I mean, it's the internet. I expected that. I've gotten some pretty dandy comments. I almost want to show it off like a badge of honor. There was one debate where everybody just completely ripped into me because they thought I did a bad job. And mods, we want to say, but for real, moderators, don't delete people trash talking me. I don't care. But we do want people to treat our guests well. It makes sense that they don't want to come somewhere where they're treated like crap. But we do also want to acknowledge, we appreciate the 99% probably or so, 99% of people who are positive and kind. And so we appreciate you. Mr. P says, James, thrashing and satire are two very different things. I agree. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the trick, guys. But here's the thing, like, what if a guest says, hey, that satire is like pretty clearly ripping into me, like, where it's like, if they feel like crap because of it, it's like, yeah. So I would say so Dave Langer gives feedback. I appreciate your feedback, Dave Langer. This should be a community discussion. I don't want to just, declare like a bunch of rules, especially. So it's like, let's hear your thoughts. Dave Langer says, for stuff like that, a post deletion and warning is probably better. So I think that's fair. Maybe that's what we should do, moderators. Let me know. And, maybe that's what we do instead. But I would say this too. I have to be honest. I see sometimes I see a person say, oh man, this speaker is so dishonest. And it's like, I think that the speaker is being sincere. And so it's like, sometimes like people in the chat will call the guests. They'll be, oh, they're being so dishonest right now. And it's like, that's where it's like, well, do we delete it? I don't know. Let's see. Brian Stevens says, hang in there, Modern Day Debate. You got this, James. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard spot to be, where it's like, if guests don't want to come back because of being trashed, it's like, man. James McGran says, hey man, you're doing a great job. Not much more you can do here. Thanks. Appreciate that positive support. It means a lot. Let's see. Corey S says, maybe you and the 2 or more guests are in a streaming bubble cutoff from other platforms. and that 2 or more guests are in a streaming bubble cut off from other platforms. I don't even know what that means, but we're glad you're here, Corey S. And Rezawad of Gore says, nice job moderating. Matt has a toxic group that trolls him, and they say, I think it sloshed over from the atheist experience where it happens a lot in chat. Yeah, I don't know if like where the people are coming from. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Topot, if you, or not Topot, Brian Stevens, if you missed it, I don't know if you're asking what you missed, but yeah, it's namely that we basically, some speakers don't want to come back because people are, I mean, that's the other thing too, is that like, I think a lot of times it's like, let's be honest, and this, not regarding the people trolling Matt. I do believe that there are people that probably follow Matt around to try to troll him. Will Stewart says, would it also be a good idea to have the guest agree to not read chat during the debate? It's a bit distracting, and the debate is with the other person, not the chat. It's true that we do want them to like debate the person that we brought on the channel, but I can't blame Matt for seeing the haters. Like I can't, it doesn't. So I mean, like, in another context, if it wasn't in this context, Will, I might mention like, hey, is it like if we focus you guys on the debate rather than like hanging out in the chat. Except in this case, though, I wouldn't say that because it's like, well, Matt brought up something that I've never seen anybody call a guest a Nazi until tonight. That's as bad as I've seen it. But it's true. I will concede that there are people, you know, sometimes it's, like I said, I mean, for many eons, I've seen people say, oh, this guest is being so dishonest right now. They're being so dishonest. I see that honestly pretty much every night. And oftentimes it's against the Christian. Not always, but it's not just the atheists that get that. It's both sides. And it's frankly every side, because I think I remember Nadir, a Muslim guest, getting that too. And so let's see. Long story short, I would say, yeah, folks, it's a tough line to walk. But yeah, I think what we will do, Lono says he didn't say it recently. It was after Sam insulted him. He said it was his last time on MDD. Was that why he said it was his last time? I can't remember, but like I said, we never have, like we're happy to have Matt back. Like I enjoy Matt. Like I enjoy his company. We spent time together. We had dinner together. And so, like, yeah, like I actually do like Matt. I like Sam too, obviously. The trick is, I don't know when it was. I have to go back and rewatch it. But I do think it's like, it's absolutely true. Like when you have people just trashing people in the chat. Brian Stevens, I think what we're going to do is this. Dave Langer had a great idea. Namely, why don't we do this, moderators? If you see people in the chat talking about guests in a way that is trashy, and I honestly kind of lean on the way, I lean on the side of, but here's the thing. I want to ask you, and this is no matter what your view is, whether you be Christian or atheist or agnostic, if you see somebody on your side who says that person on the other side is being dishonest, they're being dishonest right now. They're being so dishonest. If you see that, are you willing to warn them and say, hey, because remember, this is a person from your own position or group, and they're criticizing the side that you disagree with. Are you willing to and able to say, hey, I'm giving you a warning, like we want people to be charitable toward the guests. Are you ready to do that? Because you're gonna have to call out people on your own side. I called out, I can't remember who it was. Oh, I think it was, no offense, I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to single him out. I called out somebody in chat tonight because somebody said, hey, what was it they said? Oh, first they said something bad about Matt. And a moderator like called it out, and that was cool. Like, I'm happy they did. But then somebody called Samuel a name as well, like trashing Samuel in a way that I was like, that doesn't seem fair to Samuel and the way that they're describing him. And that same moderator didn't do anything. And maybe they didn't see it. Chat was moving fast. I'll admit that. But I kind of have to ask, like, or was it not a coincidence that the person like wasn't calling out someone on their own side? And I'm not naming the name because like I'm not trying to single anybody out. So Afir, yeah, it's like calling somebody a woke crybaby. You're not really getting it. So that would be an example of something where it's like, it's just not useful. I'm totally cool. If you guys want to call me, names, I don't care, folks. I seriously, you can call me names. I'm just like, well, all right. Well, I'm going to bed. Good night. And I won't have, it's like no hard feelings, but we're not going to do it to the guests. Andrew Handelsman says, do we have enough theist mods? I know we have a lot of atheist mods. That's true. I appreciate you asking that because it's true. We want balance. Janthelia Bagan says, I hope you don't take it personally. I don't think there was much you could have done to remedy it. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. Let's see. Jay Mixon says, I think he meant participants from chat. I don't know what you mean by that, but, okay. You're saying that's why Matt doesn't want to come back. And yeah, this is something that even, we definitely have to have this change because it's like, if we want to grow, one thing is, we really do want to say, I know it's the internet. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, it's the internet. Like, who cares? But I would say this, folks, we want to ask, nonetheless, if we want this platform to grow, guests won't want to come back if they feel like they're being treated like crap. So I do want to say, it's true. I love your idea, Brian Stevens. That's super helpful feedback. He says, I'd maybe add the chat rules below the video if there are certain things not allowed. Also, a guideline that clearly outlines warnings and bans. Oh, that's a great idea. Brian, seriously, that's actually a superb idea, is like letting the expectations be known. I completely agree with that. Tuss Beatbox, what do you think? Comments such as X is dishonest, etc. Said mockery and comments related to what they're saying could be allowed in doses, but warned if it gets to be too much. But defaming, attacking guests should be leading to warnings, timeout, and ban. In my opinion, comments such as X is dishonest. So yeah, it sounds like we're in agreement. Like if you guys are in the chat, you're like, oh, so-and-so is being so dishonest. Matthew Steele, sorry I missed your super chat, friend. Good to see you, by the way, Matthew. Seriously, I always appreciate that you've been so kind. Thank you for your kind words, Matthew Steele, as you've always been a supporter. You've always been kind. Seriously, I'm dead serious about this. I appreciate that. You've been kind of like almost like a mentor, because you're kind of an older guy that's given me advice on like not burning myself out. That seriously means more than you know. I'm dead serious. Where did it go? I lost your super chat, man. Sorry, brother. But Matt said, where are you, Matt? Sorry, brother. Let's see. But if seriously, we don't want you to call a person a crybaby. It's not helpful. And so, but I will tell you this, folks. If you're like, how about this? I love this. Because I know some people are going to be like, they're going to be like, James, you are like ruining free speech by making us like not trash the speakers. Yeah, Andrew asks, what about if somebody says there's a light shining off of Matt's bald head? I feel like if we want professionalism, I know this sounds radical, but I'm kind of like, let's just delete it. Because it's like, I know it's petty and Matt probably doesn't even care about that, but nonetheless, if we're going to grow, I would say it's like we got to change something up. Matthew Steele, so sorry, buddy. I got lost in the chat. It says, hey, James, does the channel draw the line at anyone's feelings being hurt? We are starting to draw the line now because Matt's right. It's like it's gotten out of control. Somebody called somebody, like like I said, I've never seen it this bad. Someone called, I've seen like the petty stuff and we just ignored it when you'd see like 8th graders who would be like, oh, Matt's bald head is shiny. And it's like, okay, like we just ignored that. But we're people calling people Nazis. It's like, gosh, what the heck? That's not It's going to help us fulfill our goal of the channel of providing a level playing field where everybody can make their case and where everybody's welcome. And so I do actually, Brian Stevens says, I've called speakers dishonest or stuff like that. If it's decided that's uncalled for, I'll stop. I got to be honest. Like, I love you, Brian. We've gotten along well and I respect you and you've helped me and in a way kind of been a mentor to me, just like Matthew has. But I do lean toward like maybe we should be like pretty like stern, because if we so in other words, I would say like let's not even say someone's dishonest. Now if somebody gets caught in a lie, like if it's like, oh my gosh, this is like obvious, like, but a lot of times it's like it's got to be pretty obvious, right? Like and so a lot of times, frankly, I don't know about you, Brian. I can't remember your chats. But a lot of times when I've seen people say, oh, they're being so dishonest, I'm like, what? A lot of times I'm just thinking that guest is not. Hoods360, thanks for your super chat. I'm sure that's what it is. Now it all makes sense. Let's see. Phil Ko, yeah, it's true. I giggled at Darth Dawkins, and to be honest, like that's actually my fault. It was really hard. I blew that because that's why Darth won't come back on it. I'm a moderator. But yeah, let's see. Becker TP, thanks for your feedback as well. Yeah, let's see. But yeah, let's see. I'm like super behind. The chat has moved fast. Sorry about that. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on chat, folks. There's like 1 trillion messages in here. Will Stewart says, not saying it's okay, but someone is, quote, dishonest for maybe not arguing the actual topic is definitely different than making an ad hominem attack on the individual. Yeah, and that's where it's subjective. It's like, well, are we going to, where are we going to do that? What are we going to do? The Jim Tanker, thanks for your support. I remember you for a long time. Says, James, you've had a hard time, but you're seriously going to lose subscribers and debaters if the people in your chat keep this up. It's been toxic for a long time. I think you're right that it does, so yeah, it's like we do want to fix this because, that's the thing. I saw someone calling Samuel homophobic. And the thing is, it's like, I don't think Samuel in that context said anything that was like homophobic. I think he just said like, he was arguing from a historical case, like, no, Jesus he didn't prefer the company of men. And someone was like, I can't remember who it was, but they were like, oh man, Samuel's homophobic. And it's like, well, that's not, he's like, now I assume Samuel has got like thick skin, so I let it go, but it's like, I shouldn't. We should be handling that. So, Jay Mixon, yeah, but I get what you mean when you say you don't, I don't think participants being able to see the chat adds to the debate in any way. Yeah, it doesn't, but I do think it's fair for Matt to call out the stuff that should be addressed on our part. And so Dave Leringer says, if it's something you would get fired or written up for at work, then delete the post. But things like Nazi, like that, I think they're saying should just be banned. Billy says, why do you host Darth Dawkins? I can't anymore, so now it's Converse. I don't know if people were treating him like trash, but Andrew Handelsman says, I'm a 2 on you for the chat speed. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, Andrew, I wasn't like super pumped about this kind of like smug, like, oh, James is saving Samuel, when I do the exact same thing on behalf of Matt, where I say, hey, Samuel, I got to hold you to the same rule. I don't want you to like you can't do a speech. You got to either do open discussion, or something else. Or I'm sorry, you have to either ask questions or we got to go to open discussion. Like it's just kind of cringe to me. It's like when you get like some of that, like I know you're not trying to do it to get to me. You're trying to do it to like troll the other side or something, but it comes off as really smug. I don't like it. It's gross. It's honestly, I'm just like, seriously, like that kind of smug, like condescension. It's so cringe. I honestly, I know I'm going off on it, but it's like, and so Tippy Bear says there should be a level of maturity. I agree. Cinnamon Pano says, I love Matt. I watch him wherever he is on. Sunday Worship says, I think your attitude of weathering the insults as a badge of honor is the best way to look at it. And I would hope guests would have the same attitude, but I understand the change. Thanks for your feedback. And thank you, Ben Kessler, for your super chat. Says, I hope you don't feel bad if you're heavy-handed with moderating. It's a good idea to cultivate the environment you want in chat. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Ben. I honestly do appreciate that. And I think that's true. Like, we want a culture where it's like not people just completely trashing. And so Jacob Henderson, thanks for your question. The debate begins at the very start of this video. We only had like 30 seconds and then we jumped right into the debate. So we're trying to cut down on all that stuff in terms of like the intro stuff. But let's see. Ophir says, I think you were, let's see. Yeah, I don't know if Matt's trying to bully me or if he just doesn't like being called a Nazi. I think it's that he just doesn't like being called a Nazi, right? Like nobody would want to be called that. Like it is slander, even if it's online. So in Matt's defense, like, you guys, we're not going to stick up for people that are calling people a Nazi for no good reason. Let's see. Jay Mixon says, you're trying to control the internet. That is a losing battle. You can still moderate the terrible comments, but not allowing the participants to see the chat is better. It's a tight rope to walk. I have to, I suspect, I think Juddy Donk is 100% right. Thank you, by the way, Juddy, for your super chat. I think it's so true that it's like, they say if the comment adds to the discussion, keep it. If it doesn't add to the discussion, drop it like it's hot. Bada bing, bada boom. I actually think that's right. Because for the people listening by podcast, they want a quality discussion. And so it's like, that's what we want, is a quality discussion, not one that's like, ruining things. So, but yeah, let's see. But yeah, I do think we should ban ad hominem attacks. And so chat moderators, let's do it this way. I will put some rules in the description box, and we'll need it because tomorrow is going to be a juicy one, you guys. It's going to be controversial. Want to let you know, I will put some rules in the discussion box. But I want to show you this. You guys, if you're looking at the screen, I am pumped as tomorrow we're going to have an epic debate. This is going to be, want to take a guess? I'll let you guess. Fight the Flat Earth is returning. He's taking on Iger Television. It's going to be juicy. Want you to check that out. And so we do really want you to be here for that. And then Hoods 360 says, I love to troll in the chat. You are in between a Rock and a Steve McRae. Okay, that is the grossest thing I've ever heard. But anyway, basically, thank you for your encouragement. And I would say, Joker's Wild is right. Insulting the guest does not elevate the discourse. It only denigrates it. Let's see. No. I know what you mean, CRISPR, but we're saying we want to delete the stuff that is we want to delete the stuff that is trashing a guest where it's come on, for real. And so that's the trick. Now, the funny thing is, if it were, do you guys remember there was a Christian on the other night? I can't remember who it was, but I said, hey guys, can you respect the guests? And I was getting flack from people who were like, James, they're not worthy of respect. I should be able to say all these bad things about them, and you're defending a bad person. And again, it's that tribalism where it's it's my point, you guys, is I'm telling you, what we want here is our guests to be respected, attack the arguments, not the people. And we wish Matt well. He's always welcome back if he wants to come back. But if he doesn't want to come back, we're not entitled to have any guest on if they don't want to come on. And so I've got no hard feelings toward Matt. I would be upset too if people called me a Nazi. So Sean Kelly says, this is totally James letting some... but it's true though, like think about this, guys, is that we basically... Do you think we're going to grow to be a big mainstream channel, which is what I want? In 10 years, my goal is to be like a monstrous platform for fair debate. Do you think it's going to happen, though, if we have people that are trashing the guests? And so Stripper Lurker says, if you watch the Atheist Experience to see the tools and methods they have, the mods use in live chat. I'd have to learn about those. I'm new to it. But anyway, folks, I'm going to quick run pretty quick here. But I want to say, appreciate your support, folks. We are on Twitch. If you prefer Twitch, my dear friends, we want to encourage you to check us out on there, as it is a lot of fun on Twitch. And if you enjoy it, want to encourage you to check out our Twitch. I think this is a good way. CRISPR says, CRISPR CAS9 says, so mean equals warning, incessantly mean equals block, and openly hateful equals ban. I love that. I'm going to actually put that in the description box right now. And yeah, the first test, yeah, so you guys, it's like the guests could always read the chat after the debate anyway, so it's like they're going to know that they're being treated like garbage. And so it's like they're still going to feel like they're being treated like trash, which is not what we want. So let's see. But thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys. And hey, here's the thing. I want to ask you, if you happen to be, let's say you're an atheist or a Christian, and you see somebody like basically call out somebody else in the chat, and because they're like, hey, why are you calling the guest dishonest? I would say, can you stick up for the person who is whistleblowing and say, hey, yeah, I mean, like, that we've told you, like, rules for chat. Chat's disrespectful toward guests will receive a warning. Chat's continuing the disrespect after a warning will be what was it? I can't remember already. Let me write this down in here. Blocked, which is basically just banned, right? Yeah. Chatters using hate speech of any kind are always blocked without banned without warning. So that is the rule for chat, and disrespectful toward guests will receive a warning. Attack the ideas instead of the person, and you'll be fine. And then chatters continuing the disrespect after a warning will be banned. I think this is the best way to go. So, I wonder if Walmart's still open. But yeah, so we've got that. Rules for chat. And so, yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a wild one. We do want to let you know we are on Twitch. I think that's linked in the top of the chat. Did I put it in the top of the chat? I don't remember. Taliesin Oberlander, dog whistles are like a tricky thing because I think oftentimes the people who are real Nazis, they're trying to make people look silly when we ban their stuff that sometimes they'll, like they'll put stuff that is like, they're trying to make us look silly. So it's like, it's a tricky thing on, it frankly probably depends on the dog whistle because I think a lot of times they're trying to like bait people into deleting their stuff when it's, oh, there it is. So we'll talk about that. But I would say we do appreciate you guys. But here's the thing, moderators, for real, there will be some people who hate this policy. And if they want to trash me and they're like, man, James is just, James is the worst. And James is, even if they call me a Nazi, for real, I don't care. Like, don't delete the critics of me. I don't care. For real. I've got, it's like, whatever. I don't care. But the guests, we do want to actually defend, and that's just being professional. So, for real, anybody who seems like they're a hater of me, leave them be. It's totally okay. Thanks for your support, all of you. We really do appreciate you guys. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more juicy debates, such as this one, Flat Earth on trial tomorrow. That's going to be epic. Look at this. It's going to be tremendous. Fight the Flat Earth and Iger Television. It's honestly going to be, oh, Top Hot, you're right. Thanks, Ophir, for your saying you don't want to trash me. And yeah, I am going to add it to the rules that I don't care if you trash me. That's true. Like, I don't. I would wonder why, because some of you, we've got a good relationship, and I'd be like, what's going on? But you can disrespect me, James, all you want, and it will not be deleted because I don't care. And I've told moderators to let people criticize MDD or me. Yeah, that's better. I like that. This is great. This is like good. And, we'll be okay, folks. If Matt doesn't come back, we will be okay. We have a lot of epic debates, and the door's open to Matt, but like I said, we're not entitled, and so there's no hard feelings if he really does want to never come back. But we've got big plans, you guys. We've got big stuff that we're working on. And so believe me, folks, we have an exciting future ahead of us. We are pumped for it. And so thank you guys so much for your support. Oh, thanks for your last super chat. OZN says, thank you for what you do. Seriously, that means a lot. You have no idea. You have no idea how much that means. Thank you. I get so many emails and messages, and sometimes even like on my personal Facebook and stuff, is that I get so much criticism sometimes, like, you should do the channel this way, you should do it that way. And it's like, as if I'm not the person that's moderated about 550 debates. And they're like, you should do the channel this way, it's stupid this way. And I ignore it because I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But the people who say thank you and are like, man, thanks for doing this. Thanks for like putting your time into it. Thanks for taking the risk. So for example, like tonight, we paid, like oftentimes we have paid debates, and we're just counting on super chats or ads. Hopefully, if this doesn't get demonetized, which I have a feeling it will, but we rely on you. And so thank you for your support, and thanks for just for your kind words and encouragement. Thanks for your kind words, Hoods 360. It seriously means a lot. And so, but yeah, we do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for your support. we do have a Patreon, folks. If you are excited about the channel, if you are like, hey man, I love the vision. I love the idea of like trying to give everybody a fair platform to make their case. If you're like, yeah, I'm behind that. I want to encourage you to consider joining our Patreon. That's our vision, you guys. We're excited about it. And we're like absolutely committed to that vision of creating a platform that is fair and equal, that it gives everybody a chance to make their case on a level playing field. That is our goal. And so if you're like, hey, James, I love that. Like, I'm all in. Like, that vision, I'm excited about that. And I don't know of a lot of channels that do that, to be honest. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with not doing that. There are channels that, you know, they're trying to make their case, you could say, and that's fine. I'm not against that. For me, though, I'm like, we want to be sure we treat the debaters well, and that, you know, as well as equally, in terms of like, we want to have it be such that I don't jump into the debate and start debating one side, you know, because like sometimes I've seen channels where it's like the moderator has entered the debate, and it's like, yeah, that's not a fair debate. So, yeah, I mean, we appreciate your support, you guys, and let me get you that Patreon link. Corey S says, what is it called? These don't mix. Thanks for that feedback. And let's see. Timo says, check it out. Oh, Timo, thanks, brother. Thanks for, so I have pinned this at the top of the chat. Is basically, I've pinned it at the top of the chat. We have a Patreon, and so I would highly encourage you to check that out. And so we do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for your support of Patreon. Basically, for example, see down here, this little like ticker down here where it's got names. So there you see Philosoph, Jay Mixon, and many, many others. Thank you guys for your support. You see Amy Newman, Homo Technocrat, and many others. Thank you for your support to our patrons. We appreciate you guys. That's one of the options, is having your name in the ticker down there. And then there's like our kind of like group Patreon meetings where if you want to give feedback on the channel in terms of like, basically it's a Zoom chat, or it's just a group chat. And we are like, hey, let's see. We are basically, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't remember, but we do, yeah, moderators can trash talk me for real. You guys, I'm 100% serious. It's totally okay to like, if people in the chat want to trash talk me, I don't care. But Perfect One says, putting that in the rules will be taken as a challenge by many. There may be a flood of the most unseemly and obscene comments about you, James. Probably, but that's all right. Thanks for the warning. I appreciate it, but we're going to be okay. We can handle it, folks. We're strong. We are determined. We have exciting, you could say we have excitement for the future. And so let's see. Thank you guys for your support. Thanks again for your super chat from Ozian, or Ozian. Let me know if I pronounced it right. Said, thank you for what you do. Seriously, that means so much. When you guys like give that love and positivity and encouragement, like whether it be through super chats or emails or whatever it is, it seriously does mean a lot. So I do honestly, I just appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for making this fun and your support. And like I said, it's only like 1% of people that are trying to like stir the pot and get everybody to hate each other. And so I just appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for everyone. And we hope you have a great rest of your Friday or Saturday, depending on what location you're in. And also, though, you guys, Flat Earth on trial, fight the Flat Earth against Iger. Tomorrow is going to be awesome. And thank you, that one dude who said James is the most handsome man I've ever seen. Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate that, buddy. So, Dave Langer. Oh, I didn't know that. I forgot to check the Twitch. Said Ozian subscribed at tier 1 on Twitch. That is so kind. I just got back to the Twitch chat right now. Sorry that I'm super slow. Sorry that I've been behind on the Twitch chat too. Let me say hi to you guys. Thank you. so much, Ozian. I just saw that myself in the Twitch chat. Thanks for your support, brother. That means a lot. Thank you, Brooke Sparrow, for being with us and also welcoming Ozian. Thanks, Corv7nus says, thanks for the debate, guys. You all are doing a great job with this channel. Keep it up. That means a lot. Seriously, thank you. And then I'm the only Ty. Thank you for being with us, my dear friend in the Twitch chat. And yeah, you guys, we were pumped though, as it's like we're excited about new things in the future. Thank you for your support. And yes, for reminders of juicy debates so you don't miss them live, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this debate, this controversial, juicy debate of a night, please do hit that like button, as that really does mean a lot. We appreciate your support there. And so thank you guys for all of your kind words. And so thank you guys for all the love. Appreciate you. And yeah, I would say, let's see. Thank you for your kind words. Why Pestis? For real. Seriously, that means a lot. Thank you so much. And Cypher, this 297, thanks for being with us. I didn't get to say hi to you. And Chemo Maki, thanks for being with us. Mr. P, thanks for all your support. Manic Pandas, thank you. Let's see. Tuss Beatbox, thanks as always. Munda Skeptical, thanks for being with us. Wing2DI, thanks for being with us and hanging out. Spart344, appreciate you. Thanks for being with us. Doubting Thomas, we're glad you were here. And that one dude, thank you. Let's see. Will Stewart, good to see you again. Thanks for your support of the channel, buddy. And let's see. Yeah, we're pumped. Chris O, thanks for being with us, buddy. Klaus Balder, thanks for your being with us. Hank says, glad you are here, my dear friend. And Perfect One, good to see you again. Spart344, glad you're here. And Timo, huge supporter. Thanks so much. Timo says, like and subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks so much, Timo. Seriously, it means a lot. And yeah, we are excited, you guys, about the future. I just like being able to say hi to you guys. It's like, all right, we've talked about, we've like basically come to a resolution on like changes that we want to put in place. I want to ask moderators, would you be willing to also, if you see anything in the comments after the debate, if it's trashing a speaker, I'm just like, why do you want to trash people on the internet? For that 1% of people who do it, why? Like, it's like, are you unhappy with your own life? Like, what is it? I don't know. Heat Shield says, I would come on a debate, the sudden change to chats being safe space. Well, let's see. I am open to it. I don't know, in terms of like, you know, we said we'll host anything. But Mr. P says, show us what's behind your beta curtain. Yeah. One sec. Just trying to say hi to everybody. Wow. Ozian, thank you so much for your support. That is honestly super encouraging that you have signed up for $50 a month and subbed on Twitch. Thank you so much. Seriously, it just means a lot. I'm honestly so encouraged after, frankly, a long night. I got to be honest. Maybe, I don't know if it shows. You guys probably can tell that I get stressed during some of these debates because it's like, I'm trying to keep both sides happy. I want both sides to be treated fairly and well. And I even, frankly, I do want our guests to feel cared for. They're people. Like, I want them to feel cared for as people. Like, I want them to feel like we appreciate them because we do. And so, anyway, thank you. Seth Millard says, I was here too. Thanks for being here, Seth. And let's see. Thanks for your kind words. Timo says this channel will grow. Thank you for that. And yeah, we're pumped, you guys. I'm excited. So Munda Skeptical, thank you for your feedback. Brooke Chavis, I know I'm saying that wrong, aren't I? I'm sorry, Brooke. Said I gave a gift sub on Twitch. Thanks, Brooke. Seriously, thanks for your support on a hard night. So Taliesin Oberlander will strip if we hit 20 dislikes. We better hit those 20, man. Let's see. Dave Langer says, one more. Brooke Sparrow gifted a tier 1 sub to Rabhay. It's their first gift sub in the Twitch channel. Well, that is awesome news. Super encouraging. I appreciate that positivity. Mark Reed says, I hate to break it to you, James, but the internet has extremely malicious and maladjusted people on it. Sorry. Good to know. But yeah, Gunger Spinner says, James, I'm an atheist and I love your channel. You're a good man and keep it up. You have no idea how much that means to me. I'm so serious, you guys. Seriously, your positivity. I'm just gonna be real, you guys, because I trust you. Yeah, I had a hard week. It was a really hard week, way more than normal. Normally, it's hard because I'm working my face off with working on the PhD and modern day debate. But it was also hard this week because I'm almost afraid to say it because I feel like I don't know. I just appreciate you have no idea how much your kind words mean, Gunger, Spinners, and others. Thank you so much for saying that. I just really appreciate you. For real. I'm so serious about that. Thank you guys for your kindness. And Sean Kelly, in my defense, because I know Sean Kelly, you're saying, welcome to reality where you don't get to force the real world to be nice to you. Technically, I'm not forcing people to be nice to me because they can still trash talk me. I'm just forcing them to be nice to guests. So, which is true. Like, we're not forcing people to not be mean. You can be mean to me. It's just that you can't be mean to the guests. I think that's a good strategy. I like that. I'm kind of excited about that. Dave Langer, thank you for your kind words. Says group hug for James. Thank you. Antipode Cereal, thanks so much. That seriously means more than you know. Said, my favorite podcast these days. Thanks so much. I'm seriously encouraged by that. And we're so encouraged, you guys, that the podcast has been, like I said, when I first started it, I was afraid that nobody's going to watch or that listen to it. I was like, is anybody going to actually download this? Or what if we put I started uploading these podcasts and after a month I was afraid that like maybe nobody would actually like listen to them. But now I'm excited. We're like an average podcast probably has like 1,000 downloads, which is really cool. Started with, I don't know, it was a small number, but for a while we were at I remember we were at 200. And I thought that was significant because Joe Rogan talked about how he used to be at 200 downloads. And I was like, all right, it's possible in 10 years, because that's how long it's been. 10 to 12 years Joe Rogan has been doing the podcast. 10 to 12 years, maybe we can be a major mainstream channel. So, hey, please do share Modern Day Debate if you want to help us do that, if you want to help us grow. That helps a ton. We appreciate it more than you know. Please share our debates and let people know. You can say, hey, what you could do is you could say, hey, this channel, you might get people to watch it because they might be like, oh, are you going to like send me like a one-sided thing? And you're like, hey, this channel's like got two sides on it all the time. Demilimp says, have you messaged Matt to find out if he actually isn't going to do another debate? I thought he was just threatening he won't. I don't know. I haven't messaged him yet. He said we can talk later once we got off stream. And so I obviously am like, yeah, like, let's talk. Like, I'm going to own it, you guys. Oftentimes I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. YouTube is like brand new to me. And then we like grew pretty fast to where now it's like, I never thought we'd be at 43. We're like 43,000 subscribers now. I never knew that would happen. Like, it was just something that I started because it was like working on my PhD is I need something to do for fun. And I don't watch TV. So this channel was a way for me to have fun. And long story short, I never thought it would grow like it has. And so long story short, I don't know. I'm still learning how to do these things well, and I'll be willing to admit that. So it's like, this is a problem we probably should have fixed a long time ago. In terms of like people calling guests Nazis. Like, of course guests won't want to come back if they're called Nazis. Like, nobody wants to be called a Nazi. Antipode Cereal says my favorite. Oh, sorry. I think there was another one. Thanks for your kind words, Brooke. Seriously, that means a lot. Thanks, Tuss Beatbox, for your kind words. Seriously, you're really encouraging. Thanks, Manic Pandas, for that love. Thanks, Timo, for your love. And then, but yeah, Bruce Wayne, thanks for your kind words. I appreciate that, buddy. And yeah, I would say, let's see. Thank you. 400 likes is cool. That's good. That's a great percentage because I think we topped out at like 1,100 viewers. So 400 likes, that's not bad. Andrew says, what time is the debate tomorrow? I think it's at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a little earlier because Fight the Flat Earth is in good old, I think he's in England, right? Spart says, we love you too. You got lots of stalwarts. That's true. Thank you guys. We have a ton of super loyal people. Stupid Horror Energy, Amy Newman, Dave Langer, Stripper Liquor, Tuz Beatbox. Thank you guys so much for your kind words. Stripper Liquor, I love this new rule. Insult James, not the guest. And I'm dead serious. Like, we're not forcing people to be nice. We're not even forcing you to be like respectful, period. Just toward the guests. If you want to trash me, like, I'm dead serious. Like, I don't even care. So it's true. We're not forcing anybody to be respectful. Timo says, trash that like button. And, but yeah, we appreciate you guys. I'm excited, you guys. I'm encouraged by you. You seriously mean more than you know to me. Like, I just love you guys. And Stripper Liquor says, good night. Thank you, friend. Good night. Take care. Yeah, I think there's a value to this, guys. I'm dead serious. Being basically, if you are willing to say, hey, I disagree with this person, but I'm not going to hold it against them. I'm not going to have any cold feelings or cold shoulder them. I think that's possible. It's something we can do, folks. It takes growth and practice, but it's very possible. Believe me, I know from experience. But yeah, Sean Kelly, you can speak your mind all you want about me, but we just like, do you understand that it's like, if the guests are trash, who can blame them for not wanting to come back? I'm pretty sure, I suspect maybe that might be why Milo won't come back. Milo doesn't respond to my emails anymore. So Milo Yiannopoulos will probably never come back. What are you going to do? No hard feelings, by the way. I got no hard feelings against him. We're not entitled to any speaker. But J Mike says, hello all. Hi, J Mike. We're glad you made it. And so, but yeah, thank you guys for your support. We do appreciate you. We love you guys. Oh, I didn't know that. Billy said Fight the Flat Earth is in Scotland. He's originally from England, though. I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know about that. I actually do want to know that, like where people are from. So Tim Duran, thanks for being with us, buddy. Says, good night, all. Taliesin Oberlander, always good to see you. Renty app, glad you're here. Caleb, aka Caleb, thank you so much for being here. Seriously, thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for being a friend, for real, Caleb. Thank you for being kind. I beat myself up about when I was maybe not kind in the past. And I went off on you one time, as you remember probably. And so I do appreciate you forgiving me. I like dad jokes. Everyone's are welcome. Says, you're awesome, James. Thank you for your kind words. That seriously means a lot. Timo says, these debates are usually at 3 a.m. at night for me, so it's sometimes a bit challenging to be here, but I try as often as I can. Thank you, Timo, for doing that, buddy. We're glad you're here. It means a lot. And let's see. Reservoir of Gore, spitting some real heat in the chat. I love it. But yeah, we do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for all of your kindness. Virtua Fighter. We stream like at least twice a week. At least 2 debates per week, usually 3 to 4. So we hope to have you here. And so, yeah, we've got many upcoming debates, you guys. And thank you guys for your support of the podcast. Please do. Yeah, if you have not already, pull your favorite podcast out, your favorite podcast app, open it up, find Modern Day Debate. Folks, we're on virtually every single podcast, which is really cool. And so We do appreciate you guys. We hope you have a great night. We love you. Thanks for everything. I always hate saying goodbye, and that's why I say like 8 goodbyes when I do say goodbye, but I really just do appreciate it. Like, seriously, thank you guys for all your support. I am honestly so thankful for you. So excited for tomorrow's debate. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care, everybody. Whoa. Antipode Surreal. Thank you for your generous super chat, man. That means a lot. They said more Apologia and Viced Rhino. I will invite them. Thank you for letting me know about that. And thank you for your super chat. And thank you for your support in general. Seriously. Means a lot, my friend. We appreciate you. And so, yeah. I just really do appreciate you guys. Spart344 says more like 6 to 7 debates a week. We're probably cutting it down to 3 to 4 because I want to make the content as basically, what's the word I'm looking for? We want to have as high a quality of debates as possible. Hilarious Video says, bye, James. Bye, my friend. Take care. And, but yeah, John from America, thanks for coming by. Doubting Thomas, good to see you. Mr. P says, I don't know what your comment about Kyle means, but I appreciate you being here, Mr. P. So thank you so much. Thank you guys, though, so much for your support. Seriously, it means a lot. I'm excited about the future. Appreciate you guys. And so thanks for everything. We hope you have a great rest of your night. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. We're excited about the future, you guys. Believe me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this channel is going to be gigantic, folks. It's going to be huge. I am determined. We are going to do it. It's going to be awesome. I'm pumped about the future. And we are going to keep fulfilling the vision of providing a level playing ground for people to make their case on these big, deep questions of our day. Also, Seculari Illuminati, thanks for your kind words. Says, James seems sweet and humble. I appreciate everyone who makes this channel work. Thanks so much. You have no idea how much that means to me, my friend. Thank you for being with us. And Cypher the 297th. Let's see. I don't get about, what is it? Let's see. But I'm serious. You know how like I don't know. Thank you guys. So thank you guys so much for your support. Christopher says on his 16th encore. You're right, you guys. I just love it. I love it. You guys make me happy. I don't want to leave. I just love being with you. And so Kalega Relinko says, you're awesome, James. Thanks for your kind words. Seriously, that means a lot. We do appreciate it. And like I said, yeah, like you'll never have to feel obligated to say nice things to me. Cause like I said, I really am serious, moderators. Like I'm not just doing it to like be the victim or the martyr or something. Like if people want to say trash about me, like that's okay. Like let's not worry about it. Who cares? Like, but like I said, the guess, because for me, like I know I'm determined. I'm going to come back and do this channel and moderate debates, even if there are all those haters out there, which are a small percentage of the total. And so for me, I know I'll be back no matter what. But to protect the guests, where it's like we want them to actually feel welcome, we should stick up for them. Now, like I said, moderators, this is what I want to ask you to consider. Are you ready to warn people for trash talking the person you disagree with? Moderators, are you hearing this question? Are you ready to give someone a warning in the chat? And I'll do it too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to just ask you to do it. I'll be there with you. Like I'll be doing it with you. But are you ready to, are we ready to warn someone in the chat, even if they are trashing, you could say the person that, let's say they're trashing the person who we are kind of, you could say like rooting against in the debate, the person that we disagree with in the debate. So let's say you're a Christian. If they're trashing an atheist, are you ready to say, hey, person in the chat, we don't want you to do that? Or if you're an atheist, so vice versa, and you see another atheist in the chat, presumably, but they're trashing the Christian. They're saying, oh, this Christian is being so dishonest, so dishonest. Are you ready to call them out, moderators? I've asked that question, and now I'm going to read your responses in the chat to see if you're ready to do that. Thank you, moderators, for responding. I have seen you. You have said, Perfect One says, oh, thank you for liking the channel. But Brooke says, yes, I will do that, James. Francesco Pugliese, thank you for being with us, my friend. And also, Tuss Beatbox says, aye, aye, Captain. Thank you, Tuss. We're all in this together. And so we'll do it to everybody. We'll say, hey, but for real, like, we have told you, like, if you want to attack ideas or James, go for it. But if you want to attack the guests, like, we don't want that. So, Perfect One says, can, have, and will. Spart344 says yes. And who else? Thank you for saying that, by the way, friends. And then Will Stewart says, no one is warning or calling out Renty app. I didn't know what he was saying, honestly. CRISPR CAS9 says, yes. What is Renty app saying? He says, I have no reason for proving anything to you. Your God, let's see, it does not matter enough for me. But for me to take the time to explain anything to you. Now, one thing I want to ask, so I think I saw Renty app earlier, was like, theists are like the most dishonest people. You guys, a lot of you are like, that's fine. But theoretically, like, it is a protected group. Imagine if somebody said, like, oh, like, you know, this ethnic group they're the worst liars. So it's like, if you do it and you say, like, oh, Christians are the worst liars or theists are the worst liars, it's like, geez. It is, you know, like, it is something where it's like, yeah, I can see why it's like it's not conducive for like a respectful debate environment. Robert Russell says, if moderators cannot agree, then they are not truly moderators. Thank you for that, Robert. And so, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, I agree. Will Stewart says he called all theists dishonest. Danny, thanks for being with us. Danny3648. Mr. P says, what about general disruption to the chat, like spamming or abusive caps? Yeah, I mean, maybe we should be more quick to give those warnings and just be like, seriously, it's kind of obnoxious. You're lessening the experience for people in the chat, and that's not what we want. In your face, New Yorker says, no, you're done. I don't know who he's talking to, but we're glad you're here. And so Heat Shield says, called out many of my fellow moderators on other channels for going too far. It's part of being honest with each other. You need much more clear boundaries if this is to work. Thanks for letting me know that. And the boundaries are clear now because we put it in the chat or the description box. Brooke, thanks so much for your huge support. Says, we can do this, folks. Let's help make this channel grow. I appreciate that, Brooke. Seriously, you have no idea. Please, it is a big deal. It really helps if you guys share Modern Day debates on social media, retweet it, whatever it is. Thank you guys for doing that. That's a very practical way to help the channel. And so thank you guys for doing that. If you're pumped up right now, like, you can open up Twitter right now on a different tab and retweet like our debates or something like that. We appreciate that. That seriously does. Just sharing our content helps a ton in terms of new people being exposed to it and being like, oh, I'll check. What's that about? So especially if you have friends that you know love debates, that helps a lot. But yeah, thank you guys for everything. Love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care, everybody.